Good evening. It is June 28th, 2022. Welcome to the San Marino Unified School District Board of Education meeting. Here is your board president, Mrs. Caldwell.
Well, thank you. I feel like Johnny Carson or something. That's pretty good. So I want to, we have a practice where we explain how to make public comments. So I'm going to cover that first, and then we'll get into the rest of our agenda. So the Board of Education has adopted Board Policy 9323B to ensure the public's right to be heard in any matters pertaining to the San Marino Unified School District. Persons who wish to provide public comment will have three options to submit public comments. Submit through an online form, request to speak during the meeting via Zoom, request to speak to them during the meeting in person via a public comment card. If you submit through an online form, you may do so for open or closed session items on August 9th, 2022 from 11 a.m. through 3:30 p.m. Comments received during this time will not be read during the meeting, but will be provided to the Board of Education. Please submit the comments at https://bit.ly/BOE080922. Request to speak during the meeting via Zoom. During public comment, the meeting will pause for 1 minute to take requests to speak. The raise hand function is used to take requests during the public comment period. For online attendees, press the raise hand icon to add yourself to the queue. For phone attendees, dial *9. The speaking order will be determined based on the order of requests received. Individual speakers will be unmuted and called to speak. Request to speak during the meeting in person via the public comment card. Please complete the public comment card and submit the completed card to the designated drop box with the assistant to the superintendent. Opportunities for public comment are offered prior to closed session and at the start of regular open session for matters not on the agenda and for matters on the agenda. The Board of Education reserves the right to add a public comment period prior to any individual item on the agenda. 5 minutes may be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 20 minutes to each subject matter. However, in the event there are more than 4 speakers on the same subject matter, the board president retains the discretion to adjust and limit the time allocated to each speaker to ensure that all wishing to speak will be heard within the 20-minute allotment. Communications from the audience concerning matters on closed session agenda may be heard at this time, but not responded to by the Board of Education. So with that, I'm going to move to a report out of our closed session items. We had 2 approved settlements. They related to existing litigation with regard to Government Code 54956.9. They are related to student ID numbers ending in first 4793 and second 4865. The board approved settlements for each of these items. There are no other items from closed session to report. So with that, we'll move to our regular open session and start with our call to order, which begins with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next step, I'd like to have a motion to approve our agenda for this evening.
Move to approve the agenda.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Joseph? No, sorry.
Sorry.
Aye.
Oh, is it roll call?
I don't know. I
Yeah,
seem to
roll
be
call.
doing it all
Yeah,
the time.
aye.
Yeah, it's always
Jane?
gross.
Aye.
It's a roll call.
Yes.
So just along those points, we're looking to improve the way the meeting flows to avoid this kind of confusion, both with the language we read up front in the beginning of closed session and the beginning of open session, as well as when we need a roll call vote and when we do not. So you can expect either at the next meeting or the one after that we're going to make, version 2.0 to try to minimize some of that confusion. But for now, I think we have, with my eye, unanimous support to move on with today's agenda.
I actually didn't. What I was
Oh,
asking
I thought you
for.
said yes.
That's
Do
okay.
I? Okay.
No,
my-
I'm not trying to, I just.
Yeah, no, I don't want to
Sure, it's all
presume.
clear. Aye.
Thank you. Now we have unanimous support for today's agenda. That's good. Thank you for keeping me straight. Okay, so public comment. Do we have any public comment? Okay. Okay, so for this, I mean, neither one are on the agenda, so we can just do it now. Okay. All right. So first, why don't we do Mazi Yaramati? Did I get even close? Could I ask you to go here? I mean, we can hear you, but we want to make sure you're recorded.
Of course.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mazi Yaramari, and I'm the booster president for San Marino football.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the reason I'm here is because of the football plaque was on the agenda, I believe, a couple of months ago. And I brought here with our principal, Mr. Kurtenbach. And so I'm coming to speak behalf of Booster regarding that, because I'm not sure exactly if that was not approved or was approved, or what is why is not moving forward, or what is it we need to do to.
So hold on one second then. All right, I know this is not on tonight's agenda, but we, just as a point of clarification, it was my understanding we did in fact approve the agenda item, but we asked Jason to go back and look at the topic more broadly.
We did not.
We didn't actually vote.
No.
Okay,
But we did ask Jason to go back and look at the topic more broadly. That is correct.
okay.
Yeah.
So I gather what you need is for us to vote.
Yeah, and the reason I'm here, and the reason this was suggested to Mr. Kurtenbach, because of the lack of money we had to support our group. This year our budget is $62,000 and it's keep growing, and this is probably one of the biggest budget we ever had in San Marino football, almost double than ever it's been. And then also you have a lot of new people register, which they don't understand, and we not in any way, shape or form, we can force people to be a booster member or pay donation. So we thought the plaque would be a great way for us, so we can support our football program, so we don't have to rely so much on some of the new people coming in. Some of the older members, which they still exist, they do want to participate, and this is the only way we thought they can participate. And also we can bring some people from alumni group and do that. We also found a very good location for it is under the light, and something like that was existed already at middle school, and we try to make it a little bit even nicer, since it's very it's in the public eyes, and people going back and forth under the bleachers. We want to make sure it's very unique and it's nice. So pretty much that's what I'm here for.
So given that we've heard the request before, do we have to wait until our next agenda to actually take this vote? Or is there a way we could do something in between?
I don't think we're allowed to do that during this meeting, because we have to.
Well,
stick
not
to the
during this
agenda.
meeting. I'm
Yeah.
just wondering if we could do it via email of some sort.
Well, you can give staff direction, but we were waiting to hear back from Mr. Kurtenbach on whether or not we would extend that to the other boosters as well, so that it's not just one team's booster that is able to participate in this.
So, all right, so the rest of our board members here. I thought what we agreed to is that we wanted the football team to be able to move forward, largely because of the time, the timing. And that we would come back and then consider the broader. Am I misremembering this or?
My understanding was that it would be agendized, and because we couldn't vote on it right now anyway, because the Brown Act wouldn't let us vote on it.
I'm not
So,
suggesting that we vote on it. I'm just wanting to make sure we understand what we thought we ended with at the last time it was agendized.
my understanding is what Dr. De La Torre laid out, which was we were going to get some direction from Mr. Kurtenbach. And then that was going to be presented to the board at a future time when it would be on the agenda, and we would decide how to handle the plaques for all boosters.
Okay, so I think that what we need to do
Mhm.
is put it on our next agenda, which would be August 23rd, right? So let's do that. Ideally, it includes the broader perspective, but I think we want to at least have it on the agenda. So we can address the current need for football, which happens to occur at the beginning of the school year.
So we will then ask Principal Kurtenbach to come back and deliver a presentation, a recommendation to the board on that item. And we'll
Well,
make it an action item.
If I can add to that, we came up with this idea and we want to make sure we are going to kind of be the model of that. And also not one of the other reasons the push is because of the money situation, because it takes time to prepare this plaque and install them. And if we pass that time, we also will pass the time people want to donate. So we'll go to the next year. We're going to have a hole. At this point, we are about $40,000 short after everybody register. So this, it really helps us to be able to be on our feet. And we're not going to ask TAP, hey, can you pay our TAP, So it is really crucial for us to be independent at this point. So I appreciate it. We can push
Well, and I think that's how we'll agendize it for the 23rd. I mean, I don't know how the board will vote, but we'll agendize it that way so we could at least have that option.
President, as a board clerk, I like to make a suggestion. Definitely, the school board meeting, they have a public comment session. So that's the way, let the community people know that you have a voice you can bring up. So today we appreciate, the booster president give us an update. But so then I think for the regular procedure, I think we listen and then we take back to school district superintendent, and then superintendent then will probably call the necessary meeting with high school principal, and whoever may be involved, so that get enough information. Then you submit back to the school board member. Then we can assess and then to make a decision. Yeah.
Agreed. I mean, I think we're just going to do that on the 23rd. And the only reason that the discussion is a little bit more tonight is because this was agendized and we didn't vote apparently. So.
And I think we have board policies that apply to this as well, which is why these kinds of requests need to come to the Board of Education. If something is going to be affixed to a wall or a structure that is district property, then we must present that information to the board for consideration and approval.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you coming tonight.
All right, good evening.
So our next matter that isn't on the agenda is seemingly very good. So Jason.
It is very good. It is very good. We're going to start the year good, and it's going to keep going that way. Thank you, President Caldwell, members of the board. Thank you, Superintendent De La Torre, and this wonderful executive team, and especially Student Representative Trin, who is your new student representative for this year. Thank you so much for serving. Hopefully you have some idea of what you're in for. And believe me, if you need extra sleep the night after a board meeting, you give me a call and I will give you a free pass. Kelly is a fantastic representative of our ASB. She is a senior. And despite all of the summertime, you can see she is busily at work preparing, I'm assuming, for some of her AP classes, which had summer work already. So thank you, Kelly, for serving. I just take tonight the opportunity to briefly give you some words of gratitude, and I'm going to be so bold as to speak on behalf of the fantastic principal team that we have here today. Everyone knows that no one opens a school alone, and it takes many months of planning to get to where we are today. And despite all of our preparation and my preparation tonight, I'm certain to forget to thank some people, so please forgive me in advance for any of those oversights. I'd first like to thank and recognize the teachers of my high school, as well as the teachers of Huntington Middle School, Carver and Valentine, many of whom spent tireless hours this summer preparing, going to professional development, refining lessons, adding new curriculum, adding new tools to their toolbox, coming in early, working summer school, and then coming in this past week well ahead of their scheduled time. They're not just preparing their rooms, they're preparing their hearts and their minds for the kids that we're going to receive this year. They're meeting their new principals and supporting them in ways that none of us are ever going to really know. And they're putting up with Daryl Topalian and Principal Kurtenbach. I'd also like to thank, of course, the support staff that we have at all of our schools. My fantastic support staff, most of whom I don't think had a day off, even though they were probably at home. The secretaries at San Marino High School, of course, the secretaries at Darrell School, and our two elementary schools who shepherded in these two wonderful principals who, despite everything you may know about principaling, we know that we're unique and special in so many ways, and that those secretaries and the support staff, especially our instructional aides, our custodians, counselors, psychologists, really do the running of the school. I'd of course like to thank Dr. De La Torre and this fantastic team. We had a great retreat, one that really, I think, connected us. And I'm somebody who gets a little bit kind of, I don't want to get over there and do all that work. But of course, by about 25 minutes in, I was deeply involved and really happy to spend time with these two individuals. Not so much Daryl, I'm sorry, I'm going to keep this positive. But a lot of great laughs and a lot of great bonding, things that we desperately needed. And sometimes we don't even know we need that. I'd of course like to thank everybody at the district office who continues to put in many hours. Francesca Gill, who has probably heard from our school so many times that she is sick of it, although you'd never know it. She's gotten everything that we've needed and beyond. Gil Cardenas, who even today, scissor lifts, forklifts, and ladders galore just to get the flags up so that our kids will walk in to a huge welcome banner and everything that we need. The custodians who still to this day, tonight, I left my two evening custodians who were busily preparing the school for everyone to come into a great place tomorrow. Obviously, I want to thank on behalf of everyone, our PTSAs, the Ed Foundation, my boosters. They've been working all summer. They've been putting together meetings. They've been preparing for our kids to come in. And the coolest thing about that group is this is how they start. What do you need? What do you need? And it's never, we can't do that. It's always, let us figure out a way to do that. Let us figure out a way to help. I'm sure this is going to be a great school year. And I know that more than anything because of what we saw this morning with our staff. We came in quick. We had a ton of professional development on Friday, had great positive feedback from that. We're prepared for the worst possible event, but in the best possible way because of the work that we did on Monday. And thank you for that. And then this morning, we got a great bit of motivation from a fun speaker and kicked it right off into our schools. But last but not least, I want to thank the students and the parents. They give us a lot of trust and they give us a lot of high expectations and support. Seeing my freshman class today in the large gym, Dr. Lynn, did you see my Facebook post about that? Thank you very much. But coming in and having Mr. Kerr, do this out of the faculty meeting and me being able to walk into the gym and all the link crew is there and they're high-fiving me and all of a sudden I'm feeling, all right, I'm a special guy too. And the freshmen have so much energy, so much positivity. They're an awesome, diverse group. Mr. Tupac, you gave us a great group of kids there. I just wanted to thank you. I think this is going to be a fantastic year. And let's remember, we're going to go through some ups and some downs. We're going to get frustrated both with each other and with situations. But all of our hearts and our minds are going in the same place. We love our kids. We love our community. We're working very hard for all of that support. And I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity, and go Titans.
Thank you.
The Foxes and Explorers.
I have a second question again. Okay. Mr. Kattenberg, you are putting in the public comment. I'm just worried about because you have so many fans in the San Marino High School. Because now in the agenda, so then they may scale, that they miss. I worry about the parent may think they miss something because each word you say they believe and then they follow. But I know this public comment. I thought you trying to introduce a new school board member and then also do the appreciation to everyone. But if there's another update for San Marino High School, so we
there's
have another section
another
for
day.
each.
It's another meeting. Where they're gonna, yeah.
It's going to be the next meeting on the 23rd because principals will come back and deliver their opening day presentations, but we can't do that before school starts. So that will happen on the 23rd.
Just to make life really hard for them, we're having our board meeting the night before the first day of school.
Okay, so I just want to say the audience, if you like to know what's going on tonight, you can go back to listen the audio. Okay.
Thank you.
President Caldwell, I do want to remind the board that we do have an audience on Zoom, and I'd like to, if it's okay, to go ahead and allow our Zoom participants to raise their hand if they'd like to.
Absolutely.
Public comment. May we go ahead and do that? At this
Yes.
time? Okay. Perfect. Thank you. We'll go ahead and pause for 1 minute to take requests to speak regarding matters that are not on the agenda or matters that are on the agenda at this time. If you'd like to make a request to speak, please press the raise hand icon or dial *9.
Isn't that Jeopardy where you need the music or what's the?
Background music.
Yeah, yeah. I think we got to cover something for a minute here.
Okay, we have no requests.
Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate you keeping me on track. Okay, so let's move to our consent section. So these items, I mean, they're on the agenda. We need a motion to approve.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Just one quick comment on that. We have a revised, right, certificated and classified personnel doc. I'm looking at Jennifer.
Gave it to
Delatour.
us.
She sent it
Okay,
to.
so were these two the ones that were originally posted to the agenda? So
She updated it with the electronic packet for us.
within 72 hours. So it was posted. I'm just wondering if we need to approve it as amended.
So we received the amended version this afternoon.
So we need to approve it as amended.
Okay,
Yeah, so the motion needs to state, we
so 8A and 8B.
move to approve as amended because this personnel doc wasn't part of the original packet that was posted to the public. Right?
You mean 72 hours ago, even
Right.
though it's been updated today?
Yeah, it's
Because in the
updated
past,
today,
we made revisions and we didn't have to do it as an amendment. But
right?
we're
Don't we have
changing.
to? Jen? Don't we have to approve it as amended because it was not posted for 72 hours?
We've approved.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's stay consistent with our practice. I'm sorry, I'm just,
That's okay.
it
That's
wasn't
okay.
part of the original packet. so I
Yep,
thought
no,
had to do
we
that.
agree it was not. And
Okay.
so-
But in the past.
Oh, wait, can you, Jason, can you stay? Because I actually have a question about one of yours in the consent. Sorry, sorry.
Nice try.
This is the
Nice try.
eternal hook.
Okay.
No.
So,
So let's just be consistent with our
our
practice and
past-
I'll follow up with council.
yeah, our past practice has been that although there were changes made in the agenda, as long as they were made by the board meeting, even though they were different from 72 hours original posting, we went forward and just approved it as.
Okay. And that may have been vetted by council back then. I'm not sure.
So how about this? I mean, it seems like there's no harm in, at least for
Sure.
today, approving it as
As amended.
amended.
Yeah.
So in the event that council says there is an issue, we at least have the amended version approved, and then we'll know in the future whether we need
Yes,
to do
thank
that.
you.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
So I will move to approve as amended
Mhm.
with our current updates.
So 8A and 8B are the two amended documents.
8A
So,
and
so
8B.
where your motion is to approve the consent section with those two amended versions. Okay, do we have a second? Second. Thank you, Joseph. Any questions or of anything here? So I actually have one, and Jason, thank you for coming back, but I was reading the one on payroll notification for the science department, and I'm having a hard time getting due to the severe sub shortage during the 2021-2022 year, the science department requested the summer to collaborate, plan, and clear out outdated supplies and clean the lab storage hallway. Help me connect the subs shortage with that.
I wasn't allowing them to do that work this school year because we weren't able to get subs. to cover their-
I see. I
And
see.
it's- And it's critical. A lot of it was outdated chemicals that we had already identified needed to be disposed of.
Okay.
But they had to go through and clearly say, okay, this we dispose of this way, and then Mr. Cardenas came with his crew.
Okay, that sentence is the bridge I needed, so thank you. Okay. Anybody else have questions, comments? No? All right, so let's vote. Mike,
Aye.
Joseph,
I,
sorry, Shelley, Jane, otherwise known as Jane.
Aye.
Shelley? Aye. And I'm an aye. Thanks. You can head out now. Thank you. Yeah, that was my only question.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry for you. Okay, so moving on to the communication section. So we're gonna talk to the student board member here too, so we'll get to you in this section. But before we do that, Linda and I thought we'd just to kind of, have the process be, I don't know, somewhat organized and sort of up together. We changed our consent agenda or communications process just a little bit this week to talk about, there were 2 retreats last week, one for the board and then Linda's management team to prepare for the year. And so we thought perhaps together, if we covered a summary of what we did, we would at least be able to, have that in the record. And I mean, we were obviously all there, so everybody will have it in their communication section. But we just wanted to give a little bit more detail than what might normally occur in a regular communication section. So I'm going to go first with the board piece. So we met last Monday for the day at the Huntington Library. Our plans were to establish the plan for the year. That's what we were looking to do. The board has long-standing history of doing something similar. There are all high-level goals that include strategies, visions, and missions. And those have been somewhat similar for many, many, many years. What changes really is sort of the how we go about, doing those things each year for, some period of time. And so that was really the part we were talking about. So there is a 1-pager that exists and has since, well, it's right there, since I was on the board the first time, where we highlighted athletics, athletics, arts, and academic, I'm not even getting it right. Academics, athletics, and the arts as priorities for our students. In the last decade or so, activities were added, and activities include things like ASB and the debate club. I mean, things that really do make a difference in student opportunity and who students become. And so I think it's a very appropriate add. So we now refer to that as the 4 A's. And so we again talked about that. So we're not really ready to report out on what that is going to look like in the upcoming year or for the next couple of years. But we did want to just kind of give a little bit of flavor of what we were looking at. I think kind of when you think of the things that I'm going to mention that we talked about, you almost have to look at them in total. They're not really independent goals. A lot of things that happen in the district, they happen together. You have to look at things kind of in total. So we as a board re-emphasized our desire to continue to offer our students a world-class education. We want our student performance to be measured, not just academically the way we're used to, or even, by test scores or college acceptances. We want our students to become, really top tier global citizens. We want the horizon to be more than just getting your diploma from San Marino High School. And it starts in the beginning and it goes all the way through. So we're not really leaving out any level before high school. Everything kind of lends itself to, becoming an amazing citizen after you finish with your education. We want the board to continue to focus on the finances of the district. The dollars and cents that we have to work with are always a priority. We receive ADA funding. There's occasionally some surprise funding, which we were lucky enough to get this year. We have a tremendous amount of support from the community with our parcel taxes and with the existing bond that's there, the PTAs, the school's foundation. We really have a tremendous amount of support to deliver the kind of education that we currently deliver. But it is a ongoing need for the board to focus on that, on those many avenues of income, and how to make sure that we're using that income in a way that we're consistently delivering the best education possible. So we continue to be focused there. The other area we talked about is capital costs. There's no mechanism for funding capital improvements, repairs, major repairs in buildings from the state. There's just not a construct for that. And, we did, through the foresight of the community many years ago, there was quite a lot done to the buildings, and they, are certainly in a lot better shape than when my kids came to the district. But my kids have actually now been gone 15 years and they got to enjoy about 10 with the newly constructed facilities, which means that we're probably 25 years into, sort of the post-construction era. And, everything has a useful life, and most things don't have a useful life of, more than 15 to 20 years. So we're unfortunately hitting that window again. And if we fail to plan for capital to fix the facilities and maintain our facilities as we all expect them to be maintained, it's going to take away from our expense budget, because we have to have certain things done. So the board needs to continue to be focused on the capital needs that are currently pending and upcoming. So that will be an ongoing focus. We also want to make sure that we are very focused on being in, sort of service focused. We live in a world where, we all want to feel like we're valued and appreciated for the business that we do. And, that certainly includes being at the school district. It doesn't mean that we don't have good service today. In fact, we have great service. It just means really reconsidering it and thinking about it in every element of what we do. And lastly, we want to make sure that the people that work and, exist here in the district, volunteers, everyone, are valued and appreciated. And that, we honestly couldn't do it without the folks that work here and those people who volunteer as well. And, it's important that we realize that, and that, as a result, we ensure they feel that value and appreciation. So that was largely our meeting. And I thought, I would turn it over to Linda to talk a little bit about, after that, what she did with it.
Well, thank you so much for that, President Caldwell. And I just want to take this opportunity to express my sincere appreciation for all of the board members' contributions to a very highly successful board retreat at the Huntington Library last Monday. I thought it went very well. And I thought that there was a lot of meaningful discussion that took place, starting with, just a review of our mission vision, what we want to accomplish for all of our students. It was enough information for me to be able to take back to the retreat that we had, which took place over the span of 2 days, held at UCLA and Los Angeles at their Luskin Center. And it was amazing. We were there with our leadership team, which consists of our executive team. It consists of all of our principals, assistant principals, directors, and we all got together and we have over the summer been tasked with reading the book by Stephen Covey, The 4 Disciplines of Execution for Educators. And we decided that we were going to divide the leadership team in 3s, because there's 3 main sections of the book, and assign 1 section to each group to teach to the rest of the team over the retreat. So we started the morning on August 2nd with a deep dive into leadership. We talked about that. There was an icebreaker that was led by Dr. Jason Rose that was highly successful. We then went into a wonderful presentation on professional learning communities led by Dr. Richter. She put together an activity that was based on Rick DeFore's work. According to Rick DeFore, there are 4 critical questions of a professional learning community, and they are as follows. What do we want all students to know and to be able to do? How will we know if they learn it? How will we respond when some students do not learn? And how will we extend the learning for students who are already proficient? So the exercise that we engaged in, it was the evaluation of 4 separate schools that Dr. Richter described to us in full detail. And based on the description of the schools, we were asked to identify the school that we attended as children. And then we were asked to identify the school that we would want our children to attend. So it was really, really fascinating to go through that exercise and see where everyone gravitated to. And we did have people at all 4 schools in terms of where they went to school, but we had the majority of people lined up at the ideal school that they would want to send their children to. And then we had a discussion about, does this look like the place that we work? Does this ideal school that we would want to send our children to look like San Marino Unified School District? And that's what we aspire to be, which is completely in line with what the board wants us to aspire to be. We need to be the best school district. I believe we are the best. So after that, Dr. Choi did a session on elevating your social media presence. We are really working on that. We were working on marketing our branding, making sure that our parents have access to social media and they know what's happening at our school sites. Dr. Lynn has done a wonderful job of that. Dr. Choi has as well, and we're getting the principals trained so that they're able to carry that forward at their respective schools. In addition to that, Dr. Lynn led a session on compassion and wellness. And we went through that. We had lunch and then we conducted a SWOT analysis. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That exercise was done based on your school site or your department. And so the next day, on day 2, we held a morning activity led by Dr. Rose, which evaluated the type of leaders each of us are. And then we revisited our district mission vision. And then I presented the board's goals to the group. And based on the board's goals and the cornerstones for success, we then went through and created school site goals and department goals And we made sure that those goals were SMART goals. So that they can be measured and attained and time-based and achievable. And so all of those things were super important to us when we went through this exercise. And the goal was for us to walk away with action plans that we could implement and start working on as soon as school starts again. And that occurred. So we do have those plans in place. We're putting all of that data together, and then we're going to present it to the Board of Education. So we feel like we accomplished our goal. We feel like we are, in touch with the type of leader that we are. We have compassion. We know how to post on social media now to heighten the district's presence. And it was a good time for us to come together and really engage and come back in touch with what we want to accomplish this year to meet the board's goals and objectives. And so I think we are well positioned to do that.
Terrific. Well, thank you. Thank you. So next, why don't we do our communications from the Board of Education? Mike, would you like to start that?
Yeah, thank you. So as you pointed out, we all attended the board retreat. It was absolutely an excellent retreat. I was very happy with the goals that we discussed as a group, and particularly the focus on the culture of service and the culture of value of each of our employees that contribute very greatly to the futures of our children and our students. I'm very excited about this year, and I'm very excited for what's going to be out there for each of our students and for our teachers. So I just want to thank every single member of our team for being as dedicated as they are, working as hard as each of you have been, and caring about our students as much as you do, knowing that you're going to do great things this year with wonderful young people. And so I just want to thank each of you for that.
Thank you. Joseph?
For the last several weeks, I slowed down, so I don't participate too many activity, except just Mike mentioned we have a board retreat. I was excited, the board member and the superintendent and the cabinet have a lot of discussion, to trying to plan the new goal. I think this is very positive. And this morning I also attend the district new semester teacher and the staff breakfast. Yeah, and we have a speaker, trying to motivate the teacher and the staff for the awareness. Yeah, I think that's also very positive. Besides that, since our new SMTA president here, so I want to congratulate became the president. Yeah. And lastly, I know the superintendent and the cabinet are working very hard. Yeah, I hope that we have another good year. Thank you.
Thank you. Jane, would you like to go next?
Sure. So I took July off as well. I think, and I want to say, I think a lot of people did, and I'm so glad everyone did. I think everyone needed to kind of step away from everything for whatever moments they could to just refresh and recharge and hit the ground running. And I think everyone's doing that. Everybody's kind of running around, getting ready for the school year. So thank you to our staff and our parents. Thank you, parents, for preparing your kids, for getting them up. Good luck with that tomorrow. I know I'll be struggling with that, even though the high school is half an hour later and the middle school 10 minutes later. So everybody beware of traffic. So I'm excited about the start of school. I'm going to work myself sort of backwards. I attended the breakfast this morning, and I wanted to say thank you for all of the organization that went into that, for the speaker. I think that my takeaway from that was the serve, not shine. I think that really does exemplify who we are as a district. We really are not looking to puff ourselves up. when we want to be the best, it is for our students. And so I really appreciated that reminder to just change my thinking one day at a time, to not feel overwhelmed by that. And I wanted to say congratulations to Kwok and Mr. Mizrahi, our classified and certificated employees. They're both amazing people. So I was really happy to recognize them and among all of our amazing staff. I attended the safety professional development yesterday. That was intense. There was a lot of intense information from the word go. And there were times I didn't want to watch, honestly, and I didn't want to hear what was being said, because it's just not something you want to think about, the violence out there. And it's not something you want your teachers to have to think about, or your children and your parents. But I think ironically, given this morning's events at CVS, where Huntington got closed down, and it was a little bit of a sigh of relief that it happened today and not tomorrow. And yet I also feel much better knowing that our staff is prepared to understand that could happen. And I appreciated that yesterday wasn't an attempt to solve the entire problem in half a day. It was a conversation starter. It was okay, what can we do to really make sure everybody is feeling that they are prepared, that they are vigilant, and how can everybody be on board with that? How can we increase our communications around that? So I appreciated hearing that as well. On a personal note, I concluded a community college course online, and I mention it only because it was an art history and multiculturalism. And it was ironic because I had gotten an email from one of our high school teachers whose students were reading a book about Gold Mountain and the Chinese population during the Transcontinental Railroad building period. And there were students who had written art, who had made art pieces inspired by reading that. And it was exactly the kind of thing that I was studying in my art history class. It was this, what does it mean as a person of color? What does it mean as somebody with a different perspective to really explore the issues of my place in history? And so it was interesting to it was ironic that I was taking this class and then at the same time, and it was all online and it was all asynchronous, which was really funny because I was like, oh, this is what our kids went through. And I was like, this is really hard. So that was interesting. And then I also went on a few college visits, and some of them were for personal edification and some of them were for my child. And I think what was interesting about that, and this is sort of a shout out to our seniors who are preparing Ms. Trin, there are amazing colleges out there that are really different from each other. I went to 5 college visits over a 2-week period, and I can honestly say that there were great variances between them and great similarities as well, because what they're all looking for are diverse student bodies, and they're looking for the students that fit best there. And it's about finding that right fit. And so I really want to encourage our seniors as they're launching into their application period to be confident in yourselves, because when I went to all of those, I will say that I was like, oh, our kids would be great here. Our kids would totally thrive here. And I know that's because our kids are just amazing. And I know you are too, without even knowing you, because you're willing to do this every couple of Tuesdays. So, and my last thing is, and all I'm going to say is the election deadline to register to run for the board does close on Friday, give or take, with some minor weird variances. And I only mention that because I think people may not realize that that's coming up. And so that is Friday. So that's it. Sorry to take so long.
Thank you. And I'm impressed with the art history class. Like, I'm just going to say that up front. Okay, Shelley.
Wow, thank you. It does sound like you guys have been busy, even though you're on vacation. I just wanted to report out that in July and August, I've gone back and decided to continue my work at the Huntington Hospital in terms of my volunteer pledge. In July, we didn't meet as a board, but was able to celebrate the 4th of July at Lacey Park. I joined Mr. Chang in the pavilion. We also saw Little League advance to lots of accomplishments and wins, and the kids were so excited. Of course, the water balloons helped during the parade in gathering excitement.
Cool water balloons.
Well, it's, yes. On July 12th, I went to San Marino High School and I watched the junior girls softball team dominate. They had to mercy them. I think the game was over in about 35 minutes. I barely got Logan, situated where he wasn't eating. July 19th, starting to prepare and came into the district looking at things that we were looking at for the upcoming school year. On July 21st, I was very busy, attended 2 trainings that day, threat assessment and what we needed to look at there, as well as restorative practices when our students and families and community have gone through trauma. What are some things that we needed to do to ensure a healthy growth mindset? July 22nd, the Friends of Kroll Public Library look to continue to support the summer reading program. On July 24th, Huntington Library hosted sessions. I think it was every week evening in the gardens underneath the stars. They had live performances. And that evening on the 24th, I saw a Latin band play and they were very good. They had the audience dancing on the grass. There was, celebration, and other things too. So wine was served. July 27th, I attended multi-tier systems of support. And this was tier 2 training. Tier 1 really looks at what we provide for all students. Tier 2 looks at what we need to provide for some of our students that need a little bit more of intervention and support. July 27th, I attended safety and discipline training. And then on the 28th, again, came up to the district and we looked at partnership with PTA affiliates and the Rotary and looking at how they will continue to support our programs and our schools. On the 29th, met with Dr. Yo, who helped us to prepare for the retreat. Mrs. Caldwell, I do have to commend you on the way in which you set the stage for our training. I've never seen somebody who, maybe she's going to write this off, but she went on vacation to Europe and then she brought it back to us, sand, seashell, and all from the beaches of Normandy, and then made it relevant to what we were doing. When she started, I said, okay, where is she going with this? I'm not sure, but I'm a believer. I'm going to plan my vacation soon and look at that. So I want to thank you for your leadership and taking the lead in helping set the stage for our learning and our growth this year, not only as a board, but as a school community. August, I attended UCLA's, I know there's all USC people, but I went to UCLA and I attended their suicide prevention training, also attended crisis management and their look at how we utilize emergency services. August 2nd, more restorative training and practice. And then August 3rd, safety aid training. This was a grant that we had received in my in Alhambra. August 8th, looking at how we can streamline referrals and support for our students so that it's tracked and students and things don't fall through the crack. So thank you.
I'm feeling a little inadequate. I just want you to know. So for me, I think, well, I didn't do nearly any of that. But I did this week really enjoy this week and, I guess or some of last week too, kind of enjoy the annual, and I mean, annual is like perennial. I think the word is truly perennial, sort of beginning of school stuff that happens. And obviously I've not been to that in a while. But, again, there was this breakfast where we welcomed all of our new teachers. And I came to that breakfast and got to meet them and spend time talking to them. And, I think to a person, I'd be really happy to be in any one of their classes. So, that's saying something for one thing, but they were really quite phenomenal. And I just, was really impressed. And I, also that week, there was professional development training, optional professional development training for our staff. And Jason talked a little bit about that a bit ago. And so I came in the morning and, sort of served a little bit as a welcome committee. And it was actually really interesting. I sometimes manage myself by putting in the time I'm supposed to be somewhere and allowing time to drive there. And anyway, I arrived really early. So I was not just like the greeter. I was like, I was like first person on the scene at 7 a.m., which is never the case. So I got to spend quite a lot of time talking to everyone as they came in for that, but they were all very excited about it. And it was terrific, as was this morning, which is sort of the kickoff breakfast. I mean, I seriously feel like school should have already started. So, but it was terrific. And I just am reminded about how really wonderful it is to have this continuity every year. So it's quite special. And I enjoyed being part of it this year. So thank you. I think that we now should talk to our new student board member. We're really glad you could come tonight. There was a big debate about whether you'd be able to do it. So Kelly, we're really happy to have you. We don't know much about you. So I mean, I know we asked you to put some communication together if you could. I don't know how much you got back given that school's not started, but would you start by just telling us a little bit about you? Like how long you've been here, which elementary school, middle school,
Of course.
sort of the stuff we might like to know.
Of course. I'm Kelly Chan and I'm a rising senior at San Marino High School. So I've actually been with the San Marino School District since like preschool. So I've been here like all my life, and just seeing how so much changes over the year, it just like makes me happy because there's so much like changes are made to better the academics, better the environment of the students who just learn in the schools. And I also have to say that like coming to this like school board meeting, obviously it's like the day before school, but I'm more than happy to attend. Like coming to this meeting was really eye-opening for me, because as a student, you only see like the works that maybe like the teachers and the staff around your school put in. And we're obviously really, really grateful for them and all the support that they give us, but not until like you attend this meeting or you see from like the back end how much work all the Board of Education does to like ensure the like quality education for students at San Marino, like attending trainings and just like making sure like everything's in place, like attending like some suicide prevention trainings. And then I'm just like really grateful that there's always someone in the back end supporting us. And I feel like, I don't know if you really make it known. I feel like it should be known that how much the Board of Education works to help students be high, like world-class citizens, high earning achievers in society. And I'm just really thankful for that.
Do we have a PR position open? Well, that's great. Well, we're really pleased to have you. And I mean, we'll get to know you really well. You'll get to know us really well. And it should be a fun year for you. I've had many student board members, work with us. We all have on the board, and it's one of the highlights actually of the year. You help keep it real. It's not just a vote here. It matters.
Yeah, I look forward to making like changes, just like to better the school and the environment, if just all schools. And I look forward to see what you have any changes or any suggestions you have to put out. And I'm more than happy to put my input as a student on these changes.
We want you to. You have a whole different perspective, which is why it's so great to have you here, because you think of things or see things in ways we don't. Or maybe don't. It's just nice to have the difference of opinion.
Of course.
What kind of activity or what kind of club you?
Oh yeah, of course. So I'm in ASB and I work as not only school board, but hospitality. I'm also a link crew leader. So today was an orientation for all our ninth graders. So seeing, like Mr. Kurtbach said, seeing everybody at the gym and just hyping everybody up. So they're more like excited and comfortable for their first day of school. Because I remember it was like really difficult for me. And just being that person there that they can always reach out to and help to is something that really brings me joy in life. Outside of school, I also do a lot of volunteering. The main volunteering I do is I work with the USC Arcadia Hospital as a student leader under the Central Services Department. So there, I kind of just make sure everything's in line and make sure like, everybody's doing their job. If they need any questions, any help, they can always reach out to me. I also help plan like big events under the hospital, just like pertaining to volunteers. So they always ask like leaders for their input too. So I'm always more than happy to give my input.
I love it. It's great. Well, thank you. So do you have any school updates for us tonight, or will we see that next time?
I think you may see that next time. I don't, right now, so far from school, we're just like planning assemblies and just like preparing for homecoming, because that is a big event at the high school. So like over the summer, everybody in our class cabinet and ASB has been like really working hard to like make sure all the posters are finished, and when time comes, things are planned. Everything is kind of planned like a month or 2 months before. Even the assembly, that's like 1 hour on the first day, that required a lot of planning, a lot of work. Even today, when I went to link crew orientation, I saw a lot of leaders come for like the full day and stay into late into the afternoon, just helping like tape up posters, like welcome back posters at the school, so the students feel more welcome. So ASB really does put a lot of work into like welcoming new students to the school. So I think that's the only update I have for now. There may be like more updates on like activities in the future, but for now it's just like trying to get everything settled for the first few weeks of school.
So today at our back to school breakfast with the staff, one of the staff members made the comment that you know, there's a lot of activity happening at the middle school and the elementary schools, and that they hoped that the student board member would get that input from, I don't know who you normally communicate with, the principal, I don't know who it is, but there's someone I think that you communicate with at each site. And they give you sort of the, you know, what's happening here to add to your report. But if you ever want to encourage them to send a kid or two along,
Okay.
feel free to do that, because, you know, it's a good way for them to see us. It's a good way for you to connect back. And I think it'd be great to have them help you tell the story.
Of course.
It's, you know, it's really, that's why we do what we do. So
Of course, I'll keep that in
that'd be
mind.
awesome. Okay, back to you.
Yes, thank you. President Caldwell, members of the board, executive team, I am so excited to welcome students back to campus tomorrow. This is my favorite time of year. It's always crunch time. We have 2 weeks of just intense back-to-back meetings and events, but we just always have the best time, and we look forward to the day when we can stand out in front of the schools and meet and greet these students who are excited to come back onto school campus. So as you are aware, we had a really intense week last week. We went from Monday, the board retreat at Huntington Library. Tuesday and Wednesday, I want to point out that even though there are a lot of USC people up here, that we did spend 2 days at UCLA learning. And after we got back from our retreat, then we joined the new teachers. President Caldwell was talking a little bit about that. And I will just say that not only did she do an outstanding job kicking off our board retreat at the Huntington with her story about Europe and the beaches of Normandy and her amazing gift that we're all going to treasure for the rest of our living days. Mine's on my desk. She did a really great thing with the new teachers.
it was impactful. And, you know, it's a story that she told called The List. And we don't have time to tell that story this evening, but I encourage you to ask her about that, to tell you that story. It was very impactful and powerful, and it really resonated with our new teachers in the room in terms of, you know, the difference that they can make in a child's life. And we went around and we asked, you know, what is it that prompted you to get into education? And about half of the teachers responded that the reason that they got into education, because when they were growing up and they were in school, they didn't have a good experience. So they wanted to go into education to make a difference so that other children would have a better experience. And the other half had a great experience and they wanted to emulate that. So it was really interesting to us in the room to see that, you know, what had motivated them to choose education as a profession. And it was either that they had a good or bad experience and they were trying to, you know, make that happen for kids. So once we got through our new teacher orientation, which was very successful, then we immediately went into the professional development that Dr. Lena Richter planned tirelessly. That went very, very well. And thank you for being our meet and greet
Walmart
person at the
greeter.
door. I appreciate that. There's a value to being there. And talking to our educators as they come in. That was a very successful day. And then the following Monday, which brings us to this week, we had safety and threat assessment training delivered by Dr. Belize and Special Agent Cunha. We're going to be talking with the board about that during our presentation, so I won't go too much into that. I do want to say that today was very powerful. I really think our keynote speaker did an outstanding job of getting teachers and classified staff excited about this school year and excited about working on themselves. I was inspired for the same reason that Jane brought up. You know, it's not about me, it's about service. I'm a firm believer in servant leadership. We've talked as a team about that quite often. And I think that's really, really important for us to remember, and it makes us more effective in doing what we do. I just want to say again, I know board members have said this, but congratulations to Kwok. Kwok is a person who has touched the lives of every single member of our SMUSD family. He got a standing ovation today when he was presented with his Classified Employee of the Year award. And I know that made him feel really, really good, even though he doesn't like the attention, didn't want the recognition, but he deserves it. And so I'm so pleased that we were able to present that to him today. Matthew Mizrahi, very humble, very, very, very impactful in the classroom. Makes a difference in the lives of every student in that classroom, inspires them. Just he's so deserving of that award. And so I'm really, really happy that we were able to do that today at the beginning of the school year. And, you know, I look forward to having a great year this year and really supporting all of our professional educators and classified employees and this amazing team. And I just want you to know they have been working so hard behind the scenes. I mean, just hours and hours and hours to make sure everything goes well. And that includes Mr. Cardenas, who's been thanked 1,000 times today, but really very deserving. He is here, you know, 12, 15 hours a day, every day, and sometimes on Sundays and Saturdays, depending on, you know, what's going on here on our campuses. Jose Cayer, I mean, you must spend hours here as well. And just your dedication to the teachers and to your role as SMTA president and your positive attitude and your willingness to work collaboratively with the district really is so much appreciated. I look forward to working with you this year. I think it's going to be great. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Well, so now shall we move to the information items? 10A, which is the San Marino Teachers Association Sunshine Proposal for 22-23. Jose, I'm assuming this is you.
Jason.
Is it? It's Jason? No, it's who's doing it? I don't have a name here, so
I mean, I can do it if you want me to.
oh, sorry.
I'll do it if you want to. Is somebody's name on this item? I didn't see it.
So what does that mean? It's you?
Okay, I'll do it.
There is no
So
name.
in accordance with the Educational Employment Relations Act, the Teachers Association is required to present its sunshine proposal to the Board of Education in an open session meeting and also to the public to demonstrate not only their automatic reopeners, but the 2 articles of their choosing as reopeners for the upcoming 2022-23 school year. So you can see that they are bringing forward Article 25, salary rules and regulations, Article 27, extra assignment pay salaries, Appendix B, which is our extra duty assignment salary schedule, and Article 16, which is fringe benefits. And they would like to modify language in Article 10, vehicle mileage reimbursement and requirements as a reopener, and modifying language in Article 20, is that 20? Association rights reopener. So any questions from the board? And this is not something we ask the board to approve. It's simply a protocol in terms of sunshining it in the public, which is a requirement under EERA.
I have no questions. Anyone? No? Okay, Shelley, you're good. Okay, no,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. So beginning of the year professional development update. Dr. Delatorre and Dr. Richter will provide a brief overview of professional development sessions, which took place on Friday and Monday.
Thank you, President Caldwell, members of the board, student board member Kelly, Superintendent Dr. Delatorre, and cabinet. Tonight, we are pleased to provide the board with a brief overview of the beginning of the year professional development days that helped kick off our 2022-2023 school year, as well as share next steps. I will begin our presentation with our second annual optional learning day, which was held on August 5th. And then I will hand it over to Superintendent Dr. Delatorre to share a little bit about the August 8th professional learning day. Before I begin, I want to make sure that I thank those who were truly instrumental in making these professional learning days a success. I'd like to start by thanking Dr. Delatorre for giving me the latitude to plan a day that I believe would be valuable and informative to all of our teachers and instructional staff. I'd like to thank Mr. Topalian and the entire HMS staff for not only hosting, but allowing us to walk into their classrooms and use their classrooms to engage in professional learning. Ms. Manira Bengali and her food services staff for providing delicious breakfast and lunch treats on both days. Dr. Choi and our amazing technology team for making themselves available at all times, not only for setup, but providing support throughout the day for our teachers and our presenters as well. Once again, Mr. Gil Cardenas and his amazing team for helping us from beginning to end on both of those days. Ms. Jennifer Wheeler and Ms. Jennifer Delatorre for really helping with all the details, which really made the event a success. And then lastly, I would like to thank all of our presenters and our participants. It would not have been a successful day without each and every one of them. There we go. Friday, August 5th, San Marino Unified offered a day filled with professional learning. Participation was optional and it was offered to all certificated staff and all instructional assistants. The professional learning day was intentionally designed to support the work that we are already doing as a district to expand teacher expertise and support every student. A menu of various learning topics were purposefully developed and offered throughout the day, allowing all of the participants to self-select sessions based on their interest or their learning needs. A professional learning model was designed as a 4x8 model, inclusive of 4 timeframes throughout the day, in which 8 different session topics were held simultaneously. Session repeats were offered in the afternoon, allowing participants to take advantage of various learning sessions that they were not able to take during the morning because they were engaged in a different session. Again, session topics were intentionally designed not to introduce, you okay? Yeah. Not to introduce anything new, but more to support, reinforce, expand, and complement the work that we are currently doing as a district to build community,
to escalate teacher expertise, to strengthen instructional programs, and foster inclusive learning environments. Session topics are listed here on the right side of this slide. They included instructional technology, and the presenter here was Dr. Robert Cunard and Dr. Jose Luis Pedrosa from Elevation Education Solutions. This session focused on strengthening universal design for learning through instructional technology, and a term that we call SAMR, which stands for substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition of learning. ELD was also presented by Ms. Danielle Blatchley, our teacher on special assignment, and this session focused on effective ELD teaching strategies and strategies that are aligned to our current curriculum, specifically elementary. iReady was also shared as a session, and that was presented by Mr. Babak Movahed. He is our iReady representative for our district, and this session focused on engaging in data analysis to support students from remediation all the way through enrichment. We had a social emotional learning session, which was presented by Ms. Tanya El Hindi, who is our San Marino High School Wellness Counselor. And this session focused on really understanding the unspoken needs behind behaviors in order for us to build connections with our students. We also had a session on special education, and this was presented by David Salazar, attorney at law from F3, which is Fagan, Friedman, and Fullfrost, who shared legal components of individual educational plans and recommended steps leading to the SST and assessment process. We also had a universal design for learning session, who was presented by our trainer from LACO, Ms. Elise Yerke, and her counterpart, Ms. Carol Higa. And they shared non-evaluative instructional rounds or instructional walkthroughs and universal design for language and templates to strengthen implementation as we as a district move to year 2 of our 2-year UDL grant. We also had restorative practices. You could be our presenter next time.
Yes.
We also had restorative practices shared by Ms. Karen Yunker, who focused on the use of community building circles to enhance teacher effectiveness, increase student participation, and student connections. And then lastly, we had a session on Google Slides and Google Forms, who was presented by Mihail Papadopoulos, who shared tips and tricks for staff and students to support universal design for learning and strategies from engagement, which is representation, through the expression of learning, mastery of learning. It was great to see all of our teachers and instructional assistants join and engage in this collaborative professional learning opportunity. We were pleased to see new teachers, our new hires for the year, and our administrators participating and learning alongside their staff. They sat with their teams, their site teams, and they engaged in learning collectively. Oops, sorry. This slide just gives you a brief overview, some snapshots of the day, all of our presenters, many of the sessions that were filled to capacity, some more than others. But I wanted just to give you a glimpse of all of our presenters and our participants for the day. And this last slide, I just want to share with you a few next steps for us. We're going to continue our design for learning, universal design for learning initiative. As I mentioned, we will be in year 2 this year of a 2-year grant. And this year, we're really going to be focusing on implementation of UDL through instructional walkthroughs. And so we'll be measuring the level or degree of implementation across all 4 school sites. We're going to continue with iReady for our elementary schools, K through 5. We will be in year 2 of our 3-year partnership with iReady. We're going to dive deep into multi-tiered systems of support. Again, I'm going to pull in Mrs. Ryan. And this is really going to be a collaborative partnership with the special education department and ed services. We're going to put together a committee and really define what MTSS is and design a very clearly articulated pathway from identifying students who need extra support to that 3rd tier and what that looks like. So we're excited to put together a committee this year and work through that process. We're going to continue with PBIS for our elementary schools. It is unbelievable that they are now in year 3 of 3 with PBIS. And we're looking forward to secondary schools, the Huntington Middle School and the high school starting next year. So we will be a PBIS and UDL district. We're also going to continue with English language development, TK through 12. Danielle Blacksey, our TOSA, and I are working closely to develop a professional development model. It's a little challenging because we don't have a lot of professional development time and there is a shortage of subs, but we're going to be very creative so that we can provide our teachers and our instructional assistants the support they need to effectively deliver designated and integrated instruction. We are looking at developing potential site cohorts for restorative practices. After our training on August 5th, there was a significant amount of interest in, can we take this back to our school now and do it now? And so in speaking to some of our principals, they too are excited, and we're looking at developing site cohorts for that, kind of a trainer of trainer model, so that we can train internally and then have those individuals train at their school sites. We're going to continue with our partnership with our tech team to really push out instructional technology and what that looks like to really make our instructional program rigorous and provide our teachers with tools, technology tools to enhance their instructional program. And then lastly, I have not had a chance yet, but I am going to review our feedback survey results from our August 5th PD to see areas and topics that our teachers would like to dive deeper into so that we can further plan future professional development sessions that really target what our teachers are looking for. And then the little visual in the middle, we are focusing on the whole child. It's a little difficult to see, but that MTSS umbrella, oh, was that me or you? Oh, oh my goodness. That multi-tiered system of support umbrella really encompasses and focuses on the whole child, the academic, the behavioral, and the social emotional. And I truly believe that the work we're doing as a district, the training that we're providing our teachers, the work our teachers and our instructional assistants are doing in the classroom each and every day really encompass that MTSS umbrella and really focus on the whole child. So we're really excited about the direction we're going in. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Superintendent Dr. Delatorre.
Thank you, Dr. Richter. On Monday, August 8th, 2022, the district held a safety and threat assessment training that all employees attended. Dr. Belize, who was one of the presenters, is a Harvard Medical School trained forensic psychologist, and he's the former assistant director of the Los Angeles County Mental Health Department. He is a well-known expert in assessing potential threats and trains law enforcement officers throughout our country. He provides school districts with support and training on threat assessment. And you can see some photographs on the slide of the Huntington Middle School auditorium where Dr. Belize presented in the morning. The reason that I have the image of an FBI agent's back is because we were told that we could not photograph Special Agent Cunho, who was also a presenter. The FBI does not allow their special agents to be photographed. So that is a stock image from the internet that has nothing to do with Special Agent Cunho. But I did want to illustrate that we did have access to an FBI agent who is very well versed in all things threat assessment and school safety, who goes out and speaks to school districts and trains employees, and very entertaining, very skilled individual. And he has expertise involved with the investigation of repetitive and violent crimes, counterterrorism, and threatening communications. In addition to his primary role as the BAU coordinator, he provides leadership and consultation in the following 6 specialized areas currently: threat management coordinator, child abduction rapid deployment team, threat assessment regional evaluation team. He's the director of the campus liaison agent for police instructor and crisis negotiator. So these two experts that provided this training for all of our employees, they're very busy professionals, and I was very pleased that they could take the time to come here to San Marino and provide their expertise. As Board Member Chan said earlier in the conversation, this was a conversation starter. And it's something that is very, very important to all employees, because as much as we would like to believe that we're insulated from any type of on-campus violence, being in San Marino, these situations do present themselves. And it is incumbent upon us to make sure that every employee has situational awareness and knows that they have to stop and think before they react. And that takes time, and that takes training, and it takes expertise. In addition to that, we want prevention. And the way that you prevent violence from occurring is to be able to engage in meaningful threat assessments. We do have a multidisciplinary threat assessment team in San Marino that we have had for many years now. Our biggest challenge is that we have turnover on the team. So we have different members coming in and out, and we need to make sure that they're all, highly trained. And Dr. Belize has been very, very helpful in providing that support. We have members of law enforcement that serve on that multidisciplinary threat assessment team, which is very helpful. We have legal, we have administrators, we have psychologists, we have counselors, we have teachers that come in and out of the team in order to make an assessment of a situation. And it is very helpful to do that because finding the proper intervention at the right time can turn a situation around. And I just feel like it's important for us to continue with these efforts. We, in the afternoon, had a panel discussion with Dr. Belize and Chief Rueda and Chief Encontro, who you see in the photograph there. They were sitting front and center. I just have to say to the board that these two gentlemen are very committed to partnering with our school district to keep us safe and to provide rapid response to any situations that we have occurring on any of our campuses. And I think Chief said that the response time is 1 minute, 6 seconds or something like that, which is incredible. No other community has that response time. So we are very, very fortunate in San Marino to be so closely situated to the police department, and also having their commanders and their chief of police come to our meetings, attend our meetings, be so engaged with us, as is the fire chief. So we're grateful for their partnership, and we're going to continue with those efforts. So next steps, we're going to continue to work with JRIC, that is the Joint Regional Intelligence Center, to conduct a school facility risk assessment. We're going to continue to conduct monthly school site and district-wide safety meetings. Our school principals are going to work with the chief of police and the chief of fire on their school site safety plans earlier in the year. In addition to that, we're going to provide training to all site employees on the site-specific safety plans. Super important that they know what their specific plans say and require. We're going to provide refresher training on the Catapult system, because we do have new employees, and that is an app that we all have on our phones where we can communicate with one another in the event of a critical crisis on one of our campuses. And we do know that not everybody has the training. We're going to make sure that happens as early in the year as possible. We're going to plan and execute a critical incident drill at each school. It's unfortunate that now, in addition to earthquake drills and in addition to fire drills, we have to plan and execute critical incident drills. But it is important for our schools, our students, and our staff to have some plan if this happens. And we have in the past and will continue to go out to each school and provide the run, hide, fight training. There is an age-appropriate model of training students at the elementary schools. It's called Alice, and we have used that before. We don't want to traumatize children. We don't want to upset parents, but we do want to make sure that in the event of an incident that our children know what to do. Provide all employees with surviving an active shooter incident training. There is a gentleman named Alon who is a former special forces professional from Israel, and he can teach you how to survive an incident, whether it's at the movie theater, at the mall, sitting in a classroom. He understands how to do that and he does it quite well. We're going to continue to work with experts in law enforcement in order to improve the physical safety of our campuses throughout the year. And we're going to provide training to our ongoing multidisciplinary threat assessment team members. Some of you are sitting here in this room. So we'll continue to do that as well. But the day was very successful, and it was, some of the videos that we watched were hard to watch. And very difficult and challenging to process and are for some people. But the experts claim that if you don't see that, if you turn away from that, then you're not really going to be prepared. Because once you see it, you're just going to freeze. And we don't want people to freeze. We want people to be trained to react and respond, because that's what saves lives. So we're working through all the difficult issues and trying to bring people together and get as many people trained as we possibly can. And I want to thank Board Member Chan for participating in that training. I know it wasn't pleasant. It was difficult. It was heavy, as you said, but you were there and you went through it. So thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it. And I think that everyone else there, seeing you there meant something to them. So thank you. And that is our update on professional development. Linda got the positive part.
They were both positive. They're
Better
both
to be
Yes,
prepared.
No, true.
prepared to learn.
Great. Well, thank you so much. So Dr. Choi,
Oh,
Wanna-
actually, I have
oh no, there's, okay.
two
Oh, yeah,
questions.
sorry.
One question and
Mhm.
one comment. Do you have a sense at this point of how many of the staff participated in the optional?
Yes, we did not have as many as we had last year, but we had over 65 this year. And so we were pleased that we did get that many. We thank them. It's still their summer. And they voluntarily chose to come to the training and engage in professional learning.
Which ones were the more popular ones, you said?
It's hard to tell because we had repeat sessions. So I was popping in and out of most of them throughout the day. But they were all pretty full. I may have gone into one that was not as full, but they may have been full in the morning. So it was really hard to tell. I got a lot of positive feedback on the instructional technology one, a lot of positive feedback on all of them really. But I think the one that really generated a lot of interest in order, like an immediate takeaway, was the restorative practices. Because they felt, the feedback I got, they felt that it complemented the work that we're already doing as a district. And it was a natural next step, which I'm really pleased about, because the last thing we want to do is introduce something new to our teachers. We want to continue to build on what we're already doing.
And then my other is more of a comment. So can you go back, Stephen, to the next steps for the safety? So one piece in there that I think would be helpful, because we have been in COVID for 2 years, because we have new families, because we have 2 elementary school principals who are new, I think, and I'm not suggesting that you have a whole session or anything, but come up with some sort of communication plan for parents. Whenever there is an incident, parents start to freak out. And they start, the rumors start to swirl, and they just need to know what the communication plan is so that they have a clear expectation. And then as well for the secondary, it's a little different, especially with the high school, because kids have their own devices. And so sometimes you feel like you can contact your kids, but even then, sometimes maybe the kids can't. So I think it would just be helpful to have some plan in place to figure out what that looks like, so that the parents and the community too also are made aware of what they need to be aware of. And number one thing being, and I'll say this now, when there is an incident, do not call the police department and ask them what is happening. They are actually engaging with the issue. Parents want to know that. And so, and I don't know what that looks like at the school
Well, I
sites
think-
at different levels.
Don't we use Blackboard for that?
Yes, we do have actually information about to families about how communication flows in the event of an emergency. It's on our district website under parents. There should be a link for media and
The safety
communications.
security measures.
Actually, let me put it under media communications. There is a link here for emergency communications. And we
nice.
do utilize the Blackboard mass notification system to communicate in the event of emergency to our parents and our families. And there's also information on here for families, should they want to check to make sure that their information is up to date. If they wanted to update their cell phone numbers, email addresses, there's step-by-step instructions and links on here.
That's helpful because we're doing a new family orientation on Friday and we can add this link in because this is the kind of stuff that new parents, they don't know what they don't know. And people who haven't been on campus for a couple of years may not know what's happening or what to expect. So thank you.
Thank you.
Another thought might be, I had a conversation with someone in the city council today and we were talking about collaboration ideas and this didn't come up, but it actually might be a really great collaboration with the city and more like an open forum where we include parents and community members. I mean, there's a lot of interest in this just in general, you know, and
I know the police department uses Nixle.
Yeah.
Called Nixle. to get
Exactly. So
information out. Yeah.
aligning the community. I mean, it's
Mhm.
great actually, because I get the messages
Yeah.
too, and sort of helping everybody understand what communication exists. But I think it's also like kind of what you heard from,
Mhm.
I mean, even, I don't know if the guy would come back, but to do something like
Oh,
that,
yeah.
I think that helps. I mean, it's unfortunate we all have to deal with that kind of world now, but I think it makes a big difference when you know that the people who will be managing it, if it happens, that they have that level of understanding. And I mean, honestly, I think it makes us all feel better.
Right.
So,
And part of our, our training in the past has been that we need to have a team and it's one person's job in the event of a disaster to be the person who is communicating. And so we have worked with law enforcement before, where we have to appoint one person to go to their command center. And that person is the person who's going to communicate between the law enforcement professionals and the district. And so we have collaborated with them in the past on those things. So we're going to continue to work with them. And one thing that I really appreciated was that the chiefs asked if they could be involved in our site safety plans earlier in the process so that they're not just being asked to review them at the end and sign off on them. So I think they're going to have some really great suggestions. And when we do the great shakeout drill, oftentimes one of us will go over to City Hall and work with them and communicate. And so we've done that before, but we're going to continue to work on that and perfect it. All great suggestions. Thank you so much.
anyone else have questions or, okay. Well, now, COVID.
Well, thank you,
Wanna give us
President
that?
And by the
Caldwell.
way, I'm having an allergy attack over here. This is not COVID. This happens to me occasionally. Just wanted to let you know. I know
Thank
it's not
you.
because I've tested for COVID over and over and it's negative.
Well, thank you, President Caldwell, members of the board, executive team, and student board member Trin. It's my pleasure to provide an update in regards to COVID. Not much has actually changed in terms of COVID protocols since the end of the school year. But I do want to kind of reintroduce the purpose of the SMUSD COVID compliance team, provide a brief summary in terms of where we are, a situational update, and then conclude with what it means for our school district, being a K-12 school district. So the SMUSD COVID compliance team is a requirement for all K-12 school districts, and the district will continue to maintain a COVID compliance team. The purpose of the team is really to establish the protocols and to ensure that they are implemented at the school level. I will continue to serve as the district's COVID compliance officer because I will continue to serve as the liaison between the Department of Public Health and our schools should an outbreak happen. We did exhaust all of the funds available that was available for COVID support staff and our COVID coordinator last year. And coincidentally, the county has reduced a lot of reporting requirements, which I will highlight, which is a good thing. So in regards of where we're at as a county, Los Angeles County is still being classified as a high level of according to the CDC community levels model. However, Dr. Ferrer from LA County Department of Public Health has reminded all Los Angeles residents that the reason why we're still classified as being high is the fact that we still currently have a metric of 10.1 admissions per 100,000. And what that means is that there's a lot of metrics that are indicating that we will drop below that 10 metric threshold, which will take us down to the medium level. So what are some of those metrics? When we look at infections, you can clearly see the trend is going down and leveling off. You can see that the positivity rate of those that are taking the test, we've peaked, and there is a good trend of it declining. And then when we look at hospitalizations, there's a plateauing trend here as well, which is a very, very good sign. And then finally, the lagging metric or lagging indicator are deaths. And fortunately, that is also on the downward trend. So looking at all of these trends that are moving in the right direction, what does that mean for K-12 school districts as we reopen schools? The big positive indicator is that I believe almost every student and parent understands the why behind all of these multiple layers of protection. There's really no huge push to kind of explain, why are we masking, or why are we highly recommending vaccines. We're in the phase where now we are implementing the requirements of County Department of Public Health. So with that, I do want to highlight the key changes and updates in 4 areas. First, with masking. Masking is recommended, but is not required indoors. Masking is permitted at all times in K-12 schools. The 2 main situations where masking will be required is when an individual tests positive, and they must wear a mask when they are around others for 10 days. Secondly, should there be a positive case in a classroom, any potentially close contact within that classroom must mask for 10 days. So that is one of the biggest challenges that many K-12 schools have communicated with the Department of Public Health, is how do you enforce that? I believe the approach that most schools will take is education. So we will be providing this information. I've already transmitted this information to all of our staff so that they are aware. But more importantly, I think it's important for our families to understand when masking is definitely required. And those are the two main situations when masking is required. Secondly, vaccinations. Vaccination is definitely the most protective measure against COVID and against hospitalization. And it's widely available now to ages 6 months and up. For the past year, 2 main vaccines, mRNA vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna, were available. And most recently, a new type of vaccine called Novavax, which is developed utilizing a more traditional approach, a protein-based vaccine, is also now available. So students, SMUSD students, are not required to be vaccinated for COVID to attend our schools. I want to be very clear about that. And then secondly, staff, however, must verify their vaccine status with the Human Resources Department. And if any school worker, meaning employee, volunteer, anyone that's working within the schools, must undergo, and is not fully vaccinated, must undergo weekly testing. So that is the requirement in regards to vaccines. Now, testing, there's been a lot of development and changes in regards to testing. Last year, we did a lot of screening testing. We utilized PCR-based testing where we had swabbers come in and swab students by classroom. County Department of Public Health has communicated to schools that type of testing is no longer recommended. They are recommending that schools utilize rapid antigen self-administered over-the-counter testing over the PCR testing for several obvious reasons. One, you get a quick result. And then secondly, you're really testing for any effects of potential spread. PCR doesn't necessarily address those issues, whereas rapid antigen does. So the county has provided all LA County school districts self-tests at no cost to all staff and students. In our district, it'll be available for pickup at all of our school health offices. And these self-tests will be used for any staff or student that becomes symptomatic. Should they test positive and are required to isolate through day 5, they may utilize these tests to test out of isolation. So between days 6 through 10, they can utilize these tests to test out of isolation. In the event that there is a case in the classroom and staff and students are potentially exposed, they can utilize these tests as well. And of course, mandated weekly testing for any unvaccinated employees, they can also utilize these rapid antigen tests. And finally, in regards to how we respond to cases, in terms of notifications, we will continue to notify any students and staff that may have had potential exposure. This is not different from before. However, we will also continue to notify all staff that are on campus. These are Cal OSHA requirements that we must also continue to provide. The good news in regards to reporting is that we will no longer report individual cases of COVID infections of students to LA County. We will be reporting only cases when they're epi-linked, and cases where 3 or more cases are linked together, meaning there's epidemiological linkage between there. So not family members, but rather students within the class, for example. And that is a huge relief in terms of reporting. That's a lot of the work that our prior COVID support staff had performed. And then finally, in regards to self-testing reporting, we will no longer have to track who we're distributing self-tests to, and we no longer have to report results of those self-tests. So that is also a huge relief in terms of reporting requirements from LA County. So I know I shared a lot of information, and I know a lot of staff and families may have questions or want clarity. We have updated the webpage in terms of COVID and what the summary of safety measures are. And again, I want to reiterate that webpage is accessible on every school and district webpage under COVID-19 safety. And with that, that concludes my presentation on the updates of COVID, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone? Joseph, feel like you're about to?
Well, I think that the new topic is
Monkeypox.
Actually, I have the article. I got it. I tried to email to each of you, but I haven't.
Yes, that's a very excellent point. In regards to monkeypox, the LA County Department of Public Health under last telebriefing last Friday did highlight that there is concern within schools in regards to the spread of monkeypox. As of last Friday, there was one case where a student was infected with monkeypox, and because monkeypox is highly contagious, whether that's contact, skin-to-skin contact, or even materials, meaning bedding sheets, any material where the virus can live. I don't have the exact date of what the retention rate of the virus is, but it's highly contagious, and spread is a concern for the Department of Public Health.
So this student you referenced, not ours?
Not our student.
Just want to be clear.
Yes, it is actually a student that is in Long Beach, and Long Beach has their own Department of Public Health, but they are talking with the LA County Department of Public Health where they're sharing information.
I do have a question. So I think with one of the biggest questions that will come up with parents, I know even now, because their kids may have had COVID in the last week or two. What are the protocols regarding if you're sick, how long do you stay out? When you come back? And on that note, when they are out, to what extent are teachers really making those accommodations and understanding? Because I know, especially the secondary level students are remiss to miss school because they're afraid of missing things. So I guess there's two parts, one which is for you and one probably someone else.
Yeah, in regards to how, what students should do if they do get infected and test positive. It's the same protocols that are aligned with LA County. They are to isolate for a minimum of 5 days. So if a student were to test positive, they must stay home for at least a minimum of 5 days. Then if symptoms improve, they may take a rapid antigen test starting on day 6. If they test negative, they may return to school. If they continue to test positive, then they can continue to test through day 10. Now, after day 10, if the student is no longer has the fever and symptoms improve, even if they continue to test positive after day 10, the student may return to school.
And should they be masked when they return?
So students that return they should mask through day 10. So even if they return on day 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10, they must be masked.
And if they return after day 10, it's not necessarily required.
Correct.
So basically in a nutshell, students can come back after day 10 of testing positive. And the mask is up to them, but they should come back. And then the second part of it's more of a education question. And I'm not sure because I'm just concerned that if students are missing 5 days, if they're missing 10 days, I mean, how are we addressing that? Because that's going to be the biggest concern for the kids. And even before COVID, kids were not coming because they were coming anyway because they didn't feel like they could.
If you have a student who has an extended absence, typically the teacher will put a packet together for that student to allow them to get caught up. That's how we've been handling it, even last year. So
Extended is day 5 though, isn't it? I mean, extended means, so like, does the packet include the work from days 1 through 5?
yeah, it usually will provide, right, Michael, the work that the student has missed so that they can get caught up before they come back.
So at the secondary level, I know that that's a big stressor because kids have quizzes or kids are missing instruction.
Yeah.
So I guess, and this isn't necessarily asking you for a plan so much as just making sure that as much as we are coming out of COVID and returning to normal, part of the normal before COVID was being really stressed out about missing school when you were sick.
Yeah, and one thing I know that Principal Kurtenbach is saying to all of his teachers is to be mindful of the fact that, you know, during this particular time, we need to think about giving grace and really, you know, trying not to be so rigid when it comes to things. And I understand, you know, students are very stressed when they can't get their work done or be at school every single day. But when you're sick, you have to stay home. And everybody in this environment understands that now more than they did prior to COVID. So I think there's more of an understanding and an empathy for students when they miss class because of COVID, because almost everybody has had it multiple times even. So I think that it's a different culture than it was before. But if there are issues, you know, we can address them individually through the principal or assistant principal.
And it can perhaps add on, oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, and perhaps our student
Yeah,
board member.
perhaps Kelly could
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about perhaps your experience or what your peers are experiencing, because last year was the first year return back to on-site.
I was thinking about that, and that's a really good question that I'm proud of, because like in high school, a lot of students just, even now we're starting offering AP courses at grade 10. So a lot of students are already taking up that opportunity for the academic challenge. So even missing a few days can cost like maybe a whole lesson's worth that can affect your learning. And it's like really stressful as a high school student when you miss so much, even if it's just one day, because what happens if there's a pop quiz on that day, or what happens if there's a pop essay? When you come back, you have to know like that you can't have, teachers generally don't give like pop essays or quizzes online. And there's like this new policy, I don't know, but we got told last year that teachers can't be on Zoom calls with students like during the year they're teaching, right? So if you were to be sick, you'd have to like find your way around and maybe like contact the student to see if they can like call in and listen into the lecture and stuff like that. And then when you come back, usually you're like swamped with like a whole bunch of tests that you have to make up, and then just missing that important chunk of material. It may be like a few days, but it means a lot to the students because every second is precious because it's preparing for the AP test, it's preparing for their courses in the future. So I think that's a good question, and we should like maybe like bring up how we like deal with that, because especially at the high school level, it's not like you can skip tests. It's not like you can skip like a math test or an essay, because those are fundamental to your learning. It's like you would give grace to it and you would like overlook it, but sometimes if you overlook it, it may hinder your education and your like learning process, and it may put you behind your peers, and that definitely brings like a lot of stress to the students. And that's one thing I always try to keep in mind. It's just like try not to get sick during the school year, because like even if you come down with the flu, it's like missing 1 or 2 days. Like when you come back, there's homework that needs to be turned in, and then sometimes like you have to communicate with all your teachers because everybody has like six classes, and you have to communicate with your sports coach. And just when you're not in the right mind state and when you're just like sick with COVID, I don't think, sometimes people have really bad symptoms and communicating is sometimes not their first like option. It's just like getting better and just being able to like get out of bed. So I think we should keep that in mind when just thinking about COVID and just the return of students for COVID on a secondary level.
Oh, thank you so much, Kelly, for your perspective. Thank you.
I think that that's a really important point that she's bringing up, because last year, earlier on, we would know what the real COVID numbers were because we were counting PCR tests. Now people are doing self-tests and they're not necessarily reporting to any government agency that they've tested positive. So even with that, we've had numbers increase recently. So it's really an unknown how much COVID is really out there as far as I can see. I'm not a public health official, but when we're telling everybody to do self-tests and it's not necessarily being converted to statistics, and even if there is reporting, we're only reporting at the school level if there's 3 epi-related positives, but not every single one. It seems like there's a lot of room for students to possibly be positive and be affected and miss school. And I think it is a very important issue when it comes to the support of our students, that freight train of academics keeps rolling at full speed. And regardless of whether you're in that classroom or not. And that causes tremendous stress. It can overwhelm students. It can cause mental health concerns. It can affect many levels of the students. What support is there to these students that the schools are immediately jumping in when they see that a student is missing 1 or 2 days and they possibly have COVID, they're going to be out for 5 days or 10 days. What are our schools doing to immediately jump in to show the students they have the support, we've got your back, and we're going to get you through this?
So there's one thing that I forgot about that Dr. Richter is going to speak to. Please.
Sure. And this speaks to your point, Kelly, because that is a very valid concern. I know that at all 4 schools, particularly the middle school and the high school, the principals have really made a concerted effort to encourage their teachers to keep up with Schoology and to continue to post assignments and dates for tests and things like that, so that when students are out for 1 to 5 days, they can log into Schoology and follow their assignments and complete their assignments, submit them online with Schoology, and then work with teachers if there's an upcoming test or quiz, whatever it may be. I have gotten a lot of feedback from the high school and the middle school that teachers are willing to work with their students because they understand how difficult it may be when you're missing 1 to 5 days, because we are at a very rigorous, fast-paced, path, I guess you could say. And so it is very stressful, whether you're an AP class or a non-AP class or even a PE class. I know that students take their education very seriously. Our teachers take education very seriously. So we want to make sure that our students are caught up and they have the opportunity while they're home to log in, understand what their assignment is, complete their assignments, submit them online, and then work with their teachers. This was a model that we followed during summer school as well, because we did have some students, district-run summer school and PT affiliates who were out with COVID or just they were out with the flu. And because summer school is so, short, 6 weeks, that we didn't want students to miss. So they would log on and do their assignments, and then the teachers would work with them if there was a quiz coming up to secure a date and time where the student can come and do their quizzes.
Can I speak on whatever you just said just right now?
Absolutely.
So obviously we have Schoology and it's always access for students to use, but I feel like our Schoology platform is a lot different from the year we were completely asynchronous online and the time we were like all in person. It's completely different because when we were asynchronous, right, teachers would post their notes online, they'd post like their lectures online, and then so if you miss, you can always go back to the video, you can always go back and like see their notes, and everything was like widely available online because that was the only resource you had, right? But then now coming back to school, a lot of teachers are like switching back to lecture styles. So even if like say on Schoology for math, even if all the math homework are posted, and yes, I can get caught up with the assignment, but everything you can always email the teachers, but it's just getting caught up is just not the same because there's lectures in class and a lot of the questions are being asked in class, and sometimes like things to look out for in the test are being mentioned in class, and just having to learn all the material on your own, just even if you ask like questions, it's just not the same as in class. And a lot of I know a lot of my teachers last year, they kind of focused towards like lecture style, so the work in Schoology, it wasn't that much, but they had a lot of like in class lectures and in class like assignments and just like that stuff, and just not hearing the lecture or just like missing out on one class where there's lectures and there's not like any like available like resources to turn to like other than the lecture. It really like it puts a burden on the students to like make sure they succeed academically after coming back.
Right.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate you being honest and sharing that. I agree with you. There's no substitute for in-person learning and having direct access to your teacher. And so we will continue to share this information with our principals and continue to modify the ways in which we can help students who are out for 1 day or even 5 days to make sure that they have access to learning. It may not be the exact same because, as I said, there's no substitution for in-person learning, but to help lower that anxiety a little bit and let students know that we're here, we're embracing them, we care about them, we will give them a little bit of grace while they're out, but continue to provide that support, academic support, so that they can continue to learn while they're out. So thank you. I appreciate you sharing that.
Can I just ask one quick question so I can understand how that worked with the COVID situation, for example, in the summer school? I assume there was the same 5-day time period. If you tested positive, you'd have to be out for 5 days. Is that correct?
A minimum of 5 days.
Okay, and so in that situation, those students were allowed the option, were they just dropped from the class after 3 days, or were they given some sort of accommodation?
I don't want to misspeak because I didn't oversee the PTA affiliate summer school program or the high school program, but they were not dropped. They were given the opportunity to continue learning online. And that was a requirement as if they were learning in person to be able to stay in the class.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry, I just went to the website. And I was just wondering if, because as I was going through the presentation you gave, can you just flip back to the masking page? I was going to try to avoid doing this.
Of course.
But I mean, there's a lot of stuff here on this COVID page. So I'm reading required when, and so a mask is required when individuals are required to wear a highly protective mask in school or workplace, except when eating or drinking for 10 days after a positive test. So I read that, and what that says to me is if I'm wearing a mask, I can go wherever I want to go. Which is, by the way, different than the very clear explanation I kind of got when you were saying, here's what I ought to do. So this has actually been my issue with COVID since day one. It literally seems like everywhere you look, there's like slightly different information. And what you said a minute ago, I wrote it all down because that's what I thought I knew. But if I'm reading that, I'm thinking, okay, well, I got a test, but as long as I'm wearing the mask, except for when I'm eating or drinking, you know, stuff everywhere, right? I'm good. Is that not, am I not reading it correctly?
So from the day you test positive all the way through day 10, you are to wear a mask, except when you're eating and drinking. And then obviously from days 0 through 5, you should be at home.
But I don't see that there. And I don't know. I mean, I couldn't tell here if it is, you may have it here too. I can't, I mean, this was a lot, so I couldn't tell. But I don't know if it's possible, but like, you know, I mean, literally, we've all now been doing this for 2 years and there's still questions, right? I don't know if, you know, I used to listen to Dr. Ferrer too. And, you know, so she'd talk about like all the things we have to do. And I mean, you know, talk about giving grace. I mean, they're like creating stuff while, you know, while things are happening. So I'm not at all being critical, but I think one of the things that would be really helpful to folks is, you know, that sort of 2 sentences you gave when Jane asked the question, you know, day 1 through 5, you can take this test on day 6, maybe come back, wear a mask. I don't know if you can put that at the top of the page, but I think it would be really helpful.
Yes, I agree. We do have a flow chart that has helped tremendously last year, and it's still posted on our COVID compliance team website. And it's a reference. I believe it's printed in the health office, and a lot of our parents also refer to it as well. And is very effective. You know, I try to avoid using too much text, and the flow charts would definitely be my recommendation.
However, just as long as like, I mean, I literally wrote it down because I am like, what, wear a mask, don't wear a mask, positive, not positive. I mean, I have no idea. So this is super helpful. And I mean, clearly we have a lot of stuff there, but if we could just cut it down. So, you know, if it's 7:15 in the morning and I got to get my kid out the door, don't have one, by the way, not that's going to school. But if I had to do that, I'd just like, look, what do I have to do? You know,
Thank you.
like
Thank you for
the
that.
5-second version.
Thank you.
You know, maybe I make a comment right now after post COVID-19 stage. I really don't want to speak publicly, but you know, what I am learning from this life experience, I think my whole family already changed the lifestyle and the habit. You know, because you guys probably only deal with the COVID-19, but the 2003 I went to Taiwan. You know, the time China, Taiwan have SARS. So that's so the COVID is a second time another virus. You never know what is the next one. Just heard there's a new one from the China. So right now they are not sure. So I mean, I think each of us need to know how to prevent ourselves. Maybe luckily, you know, so far I haven't got a COVID, but you never know. But every day I'm the one, you know, have a very heavy, you know, social life, you know, in the outside, attend all the activity. But I do know I have to pay attention because the virus may be very close to you. So usually I'm not going to hug with the people, but right now I'm gradually do something because I cannot refuse. I know the human being, you know, this is like a very positive. You know, the gesture. If you don't do, look like you are not in that group. Yeah. So I mean the mask and the vaccine. These are the only the two, you know, the vehicle to health. Yeah. So you need to know I think the San Marino, I think is a more fresh and clean. But you go to, you know, the theater. I suggest you always need to wear the mask. Just like the last week, I go to see a show with the Hollywood, you know, the Dolby Theater, the area. You know, everyone, you know, packed in the escalator. You know the you probably need to prevent something.
I agree. I think one big
Yeah.
positive outcome is that we are all more educated
Yeah.
in terms of dealing with diseases. So thank you.
Yeah.
So I found the link to your flow chart. It is super easy to read. So perhaps it could be on the front, just so people like me get it. I don't know. I mean, it may just be me, but that is super helpful.
But one more, you know, whether right now is going back or to be more serious or no, because for public health right now, the only indicator, final indicator is like the death rate. So death rate, you know, they check those the tertiary care, you know, USC, county hospital or the UCLA, Harvard, those the big hospital. When you see there, you know, they have a more chance to get the COVID, the patient. So that's the only, you know, for I think the county, you know, health department director to make a decision. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for doing this. Yeoman's work for sure. Okay, so Dr. Lin, we're ready for 45-day budget revision.
Thank you, Board President Caldwell, members of the Board of Education, Superintendent Dr. Delatorre, executive team, and student board member Kelly. Item 10D is an information item to provide the public view of the 45-day budget revision, which is necessary when there is a significant difference between the governor's May revision and the enacted state budget for the 22-23 fiscal year. In normal years, a 45-day revision is not necessary. This year it is because of some significant positive news. Here are some major changes from the May revision. Okay, so next slide. Thank you. Although school districts were looking at the fiscal cliff in declining enrollment, the law now allows us to apply a 3-year average of ADA, or the average daily attendance. This provided us an additional projected revenue of $1.5 million. Furthermore, the law provided us an additional 6.28% COLA, which amounts to $1.6 million. Finally, we get a bump in TK add-on of $115,000, which we will use to meet the new mandates for TK. Due to declining enrollment, we'll continue to deficit spend. The projected unappropriated amounts for this year is $3.3 million, $2.7 million next year, and $1.8 million in the third year. As the budget is a living document, here are the next steps for fiscal services. We have, okay, next slide, please. Thank you, Stephen. We have our unaudited actuals for the last school year due in November. We are targeting this to be completed by the end of September, so we can provide school sites their carryover amounts. Our first interim budget report is due in December, our audited financial statement due in January, and our second interim budget is due in March. Thank you, and this concludes my presentation, and I'm open for any questions that you may have.
Questions, anyone? Oh.
Dr. Lin, I'd like to request that when you do come back and we look at the budget again, that we have a a bigger picture of our budget. I'm particularly interested in student learning programs. What are we spending on that? Facilities. I know that we have a 3% in reserve, but if there is a next health issue that approaches, how will we address that? As Dr. Choi has just mentioned that we've exhausted some of our funding for COVID. How are we mitigating that learning loss in the last 2 years? And then how are we addressing students with different needs? Not only what are the programs we're putting towards our English language learners, our special ed, what are those things? I'd like a broader look at our spending in our budget. I love what you did in looking at salary and versus COLA and all of that, but I need to see a bigger, broader picture. Thank you.
Board Member Ryan, I just would like to let you know that we have been talking as an executive team about scheduling a board budget study session meeting wherein all of the things that you have requested will be thoroughly examined and discussed and presented to the Board of Education. And there will be opportunities for questions and answers. So I will be working with President Caldwell to get that on calendar. I think that would be very helpful.
Because I really like to look at something not just for this school year 2022, 23, but I'm sorry, I can't even get the dates out now. But also looking at, how are we doing this? Because when I'm seeing UDL is in its second year, PBIS is in its third year, where are we going and how are we aligning our priorities with the money that we're spending? So,
And we do have to align our budget with the LCAP with the LCFF. And so there is work that happens between our CBO and our Assistant Sup of Ed Services to make sure that we are aligning our resources to our goals in the local control accountability plan. But you're asking very good questions, and it's incumbent upon us to present that information to the board so that you have a deeper understanding of the details contained within the budget. So that is something that we are working on, and Dr. Lin is beginning to prepare. And I will be again working with the president to get that on calendar for everyone.
yeah, because I want to see that. I see Jason is still in the audience, but one of the questions that struck me as I was reading not the board packet, but the electronic packet that we received now. Thank you, Jennifer, for all of your work. I love it. It is fabulous because, this morning, 5 a.m., I'm on it. And, at my lunch break, I'm on it, so that I'm able to just, instead of holding that packet all over the place. As Jason is sitting in the audience, a question just came through my mind. We're looking at CLAD, we're looking at qualifications. How are we building out capacity for our employees? How are we looking at that? Because the other equation to declining enrollment and perhaps our staffing, right, size, we also want to look at how do we get the best qualified, the most qualified, and how do we retain them after we've attracted them to San Marino. And part of that has to do with, if we have planning, then we're able to retain all of those staff members, faculty, and staff.
Thank you.
I'm a little confused. So, and I'm going to need Dr. Lin to walk me through this. So when we looked at the May budget, the COLA that was presented during our presentation was 6.56. But now now it's listed as 6.28. So are you telling me that it's
In addition,
an additional
Mhm.
6.28 on top of the
top of the
6.56? Okay,
6.56.
that's what I
correct.
didn't understand.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's what triggers our need to bring a 45-day budget revision to the Board of Education for approval because
Right.
it's considered a
Significant
significant
change.
change.
Okay, that's what I was just
To the
wasn't
budget that
sure
was
if that
adopted.
was, so that's on top of the previous.
Mhm.
Okay, that's all my question was.
Thank you.
So it's COLA of more than 12.
The sum will be, yes, more than 12. That's correct.
6.56%.
Almost 13.
6.28,
Mhm.
yes. Mhm.
Thank you, State of California.
Yeah.
I very much appreciate the extra money.
All right.
I just want to clarify that just a little bit. The adopted budget has already included the 6.56.
Right,
What we're
right.
bringing back is
Right.
the additional
revision
6.28.
these are on
Yes.
top. That's why I was in, yeah, yeah.
But
Okay.
the total COLA increase for the year is going to be,
It's more than 12%.
is going to be how much?
6.56 plus the 6.28.
So 6.84, does that seem right?
12.84.
12.84,
Almost
yeah.
13%.
Almost
13.
13.
Almost, yep.
Mhm.
From
Mhm.
last year's,
Right,
Yes.
from last year.
from
That's
last
correct.
year's.
Yes.
That's correct.
Based on a ADA or 3-year enrollment? or what?
It's applied to ADA. That's correct. Not applied to enrollment, applied to ADA.
The
LCFS
three-year,
is
the three-year
applied to
average.
ADA, Yes,
3-year average of the ADA.
right. And
That's
on
the
top
other
of the
change.
6.28 on top of
Mhm.
COLA, we're getting the 3-year averaging option, which we're exercising.
Great. Thank you.
So I just a couple of comments, because I mean, for as long as I've been involved in school board activities, never have we had such a system. I mean, first of all, I've never seen a COLA even close to 6, I believe. I don't recall that, but never double that. I mean, it's just never happened. So I understand that, a big part of the reason for that increase is the state trying to address inflation related expenses and, getting out a little ahead of that. I mean, as a taxpayer, it makes you kind of cringe a little bit, but as someone in the school district, it's really great to not be figuring that out from, way behind. So that is huge. But I also really kind of appreciate that there's an understanding of a declining enrollment across the state. And this idea that you do the 3-year average is also a huge relief for us because, obviously we face that. And it allows time to deal with it in, sort of a reasoned manner where you figure out what you need, what you have to have, what does this look like going forward? I mean, I think that's actually really huge for us. So those two things make up the bulk of the budget, the total budget adjustment that you have here. I mean, there's a little bit more on TK-ADA, but it's not a big needle mover here. I know that there has been some discussion in the community about, this extra $3 million that may exist. And, I just want to allay everyone's hopeful thoughts at the moment that there's an extra anything, because, we struggle so much with, just what we need to do for, kind of coming up with how to cover everything we need to cover every year. I think that we are facing a tremendous amount of increased cost in our expenses. We obviously have staff that are facing increased cost as well. We have a lot that we need to do to take care of the core things that are typically held in our agenda. And so I just, I don't know how big this discussion is, but I've heard it more than once. So I just encourage people to tap the brakes a little bit and, to the point that Shelley's making and you all are planning. I mean, there's a lot of discussion left to do. The money really is, I think, designed to get school districts through, what could be a substantial inflationary period of time. And to allow school districts to have a bit of breathing room in some big economic changes in their worlds. And honestly, that level of stability has quite frankly never existed. I mean, never, not one time, unless we created it ourselves. So it's exceptional news, actually. So thanks. Thanks for being the carrier of the news. How's that?
So that 12.8% COLA adjustment, that's for this year. And as long as there is not a negative COLA, and it's essentially that 12.8% increase from where we are right now, every year going forward.
That is correct.
Well,
That-
so.
This is not a one-time fund. COLA is ongoing.
It's ongoing.
Yes.
Great.
So, and then answer me, if you can answer me this question, then on that note, so I guess my fear is that the state giveth and the state taketh away. So, I mean, how much of that is sort of okay, how much can we really count on this for the next 2-3 years?
In the past, we've had years where we've had negative COLA. So there has been precedents set. The thing is, we can only use the current data and look at it from a very collectively responsible way. As board member Ryan mentioned, there are also expenses, and President Caldwell mentioned our expenses due to inflation have significantly increased, not just in utility costs, but this budget that we had, the board adopted in June is based on it's based on the May revise that doesn't account for PERS and STIRS increases.
Right.
And the cost of health and welfare benefits costs too. I mean, those all are going up. And so there are cost factors in addition to the cost of programs that we're looking at. So it's not just the the revenues we see, but the costs are significant as well.
Okay.
So I didn't follow COLA for the, last decade or so. Well, when I last remember there being a negative COLA was in the 2008 timeframe. Has there been one since then?
There was another one that I remember seeing. And this is from school services, and they had a database, a list of times when it would follow a recession. So the way we're funded is we're a lagging indicator to the economy. So if there was a recession, and there were two in the more recent ones where, was it the Enron 2001, 2002, and then 2008 mortgage crisis.
So 2000, it wasn't all mortgage, but.
She's going to take offense to that.
Subprime.
That's what I do for a living. So, no, but I think Jane's point is a good one, because generally they do, so follow an economic downturn, which is, quite honestly what inflation may very well drive is an economic downturn. So, from our perspective, there probably is a need for a conservative view there, because, it certainly, if history is our teacher, which it often is, there's some logic to that. All right. Well, on that very happy news. So I just want to go back to, what was that number? 12.84. So let's just focus on 12.84 at the moment. Okay. Next up, let's go to our action items. So Dr. Delatorre, do you want to do the second reading on our bylaw?
Absolutely. So we have before you this evening, Board Bylaw 9121, which is the position description for the president, essentially. This is the second reading, and we are bringing back the language that the Board of Education agreed to previously, which is on lines 34 through 36. When the president resigns or is absent, the vice president shall perform the president's duties. When both the president and the vice president are absent, the clerk shall perform the president's duties. So this is the change that we made to clean up the language, which was somewhat ambiguous in the past, wherein we did not recognize the position of the vice president in the language on line 34 through 36.
So this is our second reading. It's an action item for tonight. First of all, are there any questions or comments? I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Sorry. I had asked last time if there was any language related to consecutive years, because sometimes in the past it's happened where depending on the will of the board, how that's carried over. And then I mentioned something about that at the first reading, that, if, you take on a half-year term or a 4-month term, does that mean that the following year you're not eligible to hold the same position, whether it be president or vice president? Because remember, when you restructure, any number of shifts can happen. So I had put that in. Was that put in there somewhere?
Well, this is the whole position description, is it not?
Mhm.
So I don't see, I just did a quick look. I don't see a reference to, term limits, essentially. So I would say it's not, but I don't know if it would be somewhere else.
We looked at the sample policies on gamut. And there was a sample policy that recognized the vice president position and one that did not. Because some school districts have a vice president of the board and some school districts do not. Which is why originally, I think we modeled our policy after districts that don't have a vice president position. So the model policies themselves don't address the question that you're asking. But the question that I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that you're asking is if you have a long-term absence of a president and the vice president serves in that capacity and performs those duties for an extended period of time, let's say 6 months. And that 6 months buds up against a reorganization of the board that happens in December in terms of positions. If the vice president has served as president for 6 months, in the absence of the president, can then the vice president become the president in the reorganization? Is that what you're asking?
Mhm.
Okay.
It would seem to me that that's a separate and distinct issue from what do we do when the president is gone?
Mhm.
That's what this policy directly speaks to. And with the way that this policy is written, I would move to approve it.
Yeah,
If there needs to be a separate policy on a separate issue, then that could be talked about at a separate time, but I move to approve this language.
Okay, so I'll come back to your question here in a second, but is there a second? Second. Okay, so just, I think the question that we might want to ask staff to go look at is, I think the absence of a term limit in the document says that there is no limit on, how long you can serve in your role. The only thing I would ask before we kind of look at that is to go back and see if there are any other policies anywhere that speak to term limits. I would caution against term limits because I think you honestly always want to pick your very best person for whatever the role is. That's kind of the goal, and I think the board should be able to make that choice irrespective of how much time someone's been in whatever job it is. But I think we could ask that question and come back. And if we want to talk about timing, a length of time in a, I don't know what we call these jobs. What do we call these jobs?
officers.
Officer job. Yeah. We can then address that. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, I think that would be pertaining more to 9100, which is the organization. So that one, and I'm looking at samples right now, and there are some samples that just have it very straightforward, the way we have it currently written. And then there's other districts that do put term limits into that particular part. So it's not term limits of a board member in general, but in being in that office. So it looks like 9100 might be the place to look at that.
We can bring that back for discussion.
Mhm.
Okay. So I have a first and a second to approve, the amendments that have been made here. I think we'll vote. Mike,
Aye.
Joseph.
Aye.
Jane.
Aye.
Shelley.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thanks for bringing it back.
Thank you.
All right, so next up, we have declaration of need for fully qualified educators, the 2022-23 year. Dr. Rose.
Good evening, President Caldwell, fellow board members, Superintendent Dr. De La Torre, rest of the executive team, and student representative Trin. What you have, or what we're discussing tonight, is hopefully looks familiar to you because it is something that is done on an annual basis. It's the Declaration of Need, which is annually submitted to the Commission on Teacher Credentialing from employing agencies such as ourselves, such as the San Marino Unified School District. What it is, it's kind of in essence a safety net, so to speak, in the cases where you may not be able to find a currently credentialed teacher for a position that is hard to staff or hard to find. So it is a form that you submit that says that we've tried to find this position and we're having difficulty finding it, and we may have to put in a emergency permit or a provisional permitted teacher in that position while that person finishes their schooling or anything like that. So it's more of a it's just one of those things that we do every year that hopefully you don't need to use, but just in case you do, that is what the form is for.
Thank you.
Tiny little thing. And I just noticed when you were scrolling, the email address.
There's an extra E in.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you. We will fix that.
you are
Yes.
not Rose.
We're not Rosé, no.
So this is not just for out of state, trying to bring out of.
Well,
state
what it
teachers.
is what we find that we are having the most difficulty with, and historically, this is what San Marino has used in the past has been a historical need.
No, but I mean, this does not just try to bring teachers from out of state.
Correct.
This then loosens or gives some wiggle room on the normal requirements for in-state teachers.
Correct.
So, and the loosening of the requirements specifically is the credential.
Is
Glad.
yes, in the case where they are not fully credentialed. Yes, that's where it allows us then to put someone in there who is not fully credentialed.
But they would have to have at least started the
Yes.
credential program.
And they are near the end of it. So it's kind of helps them get going. So they could then be maybe on an intern or provisional. So it allows that.
So for example, like they would have otherwise maybe been a student teacher as part of their credential program, but now because of this emergency need,
Correct.
they actually can be a teacher on their own.
Yes.
And they're hired.
And they're hired
teachers.
as a
They're
teacher.
paid.
They're hired as a
teachers.
teacher, correct.
Okay, thank you.
By the way, how come the last page they list the University of Laverne?
So we have a student who we are working with that is from the University of Laverne. So that is the partnership that we have. So that is what it's asking, is if we are working with any students. And so we have a student
Does that
that,
mean this action item just for the
No, it's not just
special
for-
institute or what?
no, it's not just for Laverne. It just happens to be that is one that we are currently working with. And so we are sharing with the state which university we are currently working with one of our students or with one of our provisional teachers.
Okay, so mean that they say that if yes, this each college or university with which you participate, does that mean that right now we only participate with University of Laverne or what?
No, that just means that's the one student, right? The one provisional permit right now happens to be going to Laverne, but we work with other universities as well. If I'm understanding your question correct.
Okay.
I
Yes.
think I maybe I'm reading into his question, but what I'm taking from his question is the previous question says, if yes, how many interns do you expect to have this year? One, do we only expect to have one this year, or is there a potential that we could have 5, 10? And if so, should it be a different number? And then should it say University of Laverne and other unknown schools?
Yes, you don't have to put the like for all, it's just what we know of as of now.
As of now.
We do not
so
need to
tomorrow
put-
we could expect something different.
Correct.
Okay.
And just to clarify, and just to point out, it's a clad position,
That is one
four
of-
clad positions, which are in high
high
need. I mean, there just aren't enough in California, period, for anyone. So it's not as though this is a problem unique to San Marino.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I just one question. I mean, I guess I didn't realize that they needed to be in the midst of getting credentialing. I mean, because there are certainly people who might be great in a classroom that currently do not have a credential and may not really be intending to get one that could potentially fill this role. Would they be disallowed based on this?
Yes.
So you would be,
I mean, like, for instance, maybe you were an.
I
amazing
actually
teacher.
have a credential.
Oh.
So surprise.
Surprise, surprise.
Stepping for us. Well, probably not for these things, you know. No, but you know, at least in our history, I think we brought people in that, you know, had you know, strong strength in a particular area, and they got their credential along the way. So, you know, perhaps they hadn't started it, but they did. And I'm just curious. I mean, it may be just a change in things and how they work.
So once upon a time, you could get, like, for instance, when I started, you could go on an emergency credential.
Yeah.
Straight out of college, and then you just started and then you worked on it. Now they don't do emergency credentials anymore. They now have different titles. They call them, you know, either way, induction or it's
District internship
district
or
internship.
university internship.
So
permit.
Yeah.
it may be possible. It's just not covered under this form.
correct.
Okay.
And this, I mean, this says very clearly, that this is not a person who is seeking a teaching credential. This person is seeking a CLAD credential. So this person is already credentialed as a teacher, but they're seeking
Or they have
additional
Or
CLAD
they have the
certification.
preliminary, so it's not maybe all the way clear or something
Right.
to that.
So it's not as though these are people who are untrained.
Correct. They're just not off the streets. Yes.
Yeah, because I mean, that was kind of the other thing is it's like, you know, you start seeing things like this and, you know, I think it is really important to sort of say these are, I mean, we're not bringing in people who can't perform up to the standards that we want.
Correct.
Right. So this is just a way to help us get to those best people, particularly in a place and time when they're difficult to find.
And these are
in
for those
whatever
hard,
capacity.
positions to fill. So
Right.
our goal is always to find people who are fully credentialed, who have experience, who are the best of the best. Occasionally, we come across some positions that they're just difficult to fill. So this is.
And we do this every single year. It's a routine item, and half the time we don't even use it.
Mhm.
Right? It's just there as a safety net in case we run into an emergency situation where we can't find someone.
We want all the tools you need in your toolkit.
Yes.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure based on Jane's comment that I understand. So there's a difference between a teaching credential and a CLAD, correct?
CLAD is a certificate, yes.
Okay, and so each of these people that may not require the CLAD certificate, if they were hired, they would still have a teaching credential?
Yeah, you can get a teaching credential without a CLAD certificate,
No, but
but not in California anymore.
But I'm saying
Because
under
the-
this
this is
exemption, this waiver, whatever we're gonna call it. Anybody that is hired as a teacher will be a credentialed teacher, but they would then possibly not have their CLAD certificate, but they will be a fully credentialed
Correct.
teacher. So any teacher in our district will be fully credentialed teacher, even with this.
No,
When you say fully credentialed, I think what you're saying is like they've completed all the requirements for their credential. And we have, as every other high performing district has in the past, hired highly qualified individuals who are still completing their credential requirements on a district internship permit or a university internship permit. So there are designated shortage areas in the state of California. One is speech and language pathologists. There aren't enough credentialed SLPs in the state to meet the need. In addition to that, math, science, and special education. Those positions are very, very difficult to fill. If we can find somebody who is brilliant and highly qualified, who is in a program, we can support that person while they are getting their credential.
And just so I understand.
Yes, sure.
I'm not trying to be difficult, I just want to make sure.
No, I know.
Someone that is in a program,
Mhm.
what kind of program? A teaching credential program?
Teacher ed program, so they would have a bachelor's degree. They
Yeah,
would be enrolled in a teacher ed program. They have to have taken and passed CBEST, which is your basic skills examination. In some cases, they may have taken subject matter competency in past. In some cases, they're in their program and they just haven't taken that, and that's what's pending. So there are a lot of different variations to that, but these teachers who are in internship programs and placed in districts are typically, I mean, they have all the skill sets and the training and the support that they need to be in the classroom in
And
front of
then
students.
are they required to complete their credential within a certain period of time?
In most cases, yes, and it depends on the university and their timeline for the program. If you come from out of state and you need to either take the CBEST or the subject matter competency exam, you have 1 year. Or the CLAD, right?
Correct.
You have 1 year. Every single teacher employed in San Marino is required to have an authorization to provide services to limited English proficient students. And that is in our policy. And so the majority of our teachers do have the CLAD, or they have an equivalent to the CLAD because they went through the training that UCLA offered or the county offered as an addendum to their credential. So if someone comes to us from out of state, as an example, that is fully credentialed and they've been teaching for years, but they don't have the CLAD, the county will look back and see if we have a declaration of need for fully qualified educators. And if we identified that as an area where we might need help, and then they will allow us to go ahead and hire that person, and they have 1 year to
And,
complete the requirements.
and if they're from in-state, they will at least have a bachelor's, the CBEST passed, and have enrolled in a credential program. And then would have to complete the credential
Yes.
program within how much time?
Well, it depends on the university because the universities have different qualifications and different coursework pathways that have to be completed. So it just depends on the university, how long.
But do we have, as an employer, have a requirement that if we're going to hire you and you've started your credential, that you can only teach with us for so long before your credential is completed?
The California Commission on Teacher Credentialing has those parameters in place. So that's not a district thing. It's between the university and the CCTC.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Mhm. So they'll get to the point where if they're dragging it on and they haven't met their requirements, their authorization will expire. And then what happens is you cannot pay that teacher.
Okay,
The county will hold their check until they clear their requirements.
I see.
So there's automatic
Checks and
checkpoints in
balances.
place for that that work out really well.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet.
So this is an action item.
I move to approve.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mike,
Aye.
Joseph,
Aye.
Jane,
Aye.
Ellie?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks so much.
Oh, by the way, we never asked the student.
Oh, my gosh. You are, okay, so you know what? I just made a note to tell you when we go late like this, that you can leave when you need to leave, but you're right. We
So she
need to
hasn't
ask
forgotten
you. Yeah. Yeah, so we do have a preferential vote for the student. Would you like to vote on that?
I'm not sure what that means.
Well, you know what? You can wait
Uh-huh.
and maybe next week, next
Uh-huh.
time, our next meeting, we'll, have you vote. And so Mike's right. So typically what happens is when we do the vote, either before we vote or after, wherever you're most comfortable, we'll ask you how you feel about it. So your vote's recorded as well.
Oh, okay.
It's that's what it is.
Okay,
So you're welcome to give us your preferential vote.
I think it's good that they put in like information, like regulations in place so the teachers who are actually teaching are actually qualified to teach, and like the students isn't really like getting some teachers like off the street that can't teach in this subject. And I really appreciate that there's like a safety net there just in case if that might happen. So I'm really happy it's there.
So would that make your preferential vote a yes?
Yes.
All right, thank you. That's awesome. Okay, Dr. Lynn, I think we have a series of things here for you, and I'll
Yes.
just let you go straight through them and we'll vote as needed. How's that?
Sounds good. Thank you, Board President Caldwell. 11C, item 11C is an action item for the board to consider passing the first of 3 resolutions of this fiscal year that are routine in nature. Now, these resolutions are about adding tools to our metaphoric toolbox. Resolution 1 is about authorizing the district to temporarily borrow from other district funds within our district, not other districts, but other district funds within our district to support the district's general operating expenses. The maximum borrowed is not to exceed $1.8 million, and the borrowing shall occur only when the fund receiving the money will earn sufficient income during the current fiscal year. The amounts borrowed shall be repaid either in the same fiscal year or in the following fiscal year if the borrowing takes place within the final 120 calendar days of a fiscal year. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve Resolution 1 as presented.
I move to approve resolution 1.
Thank you. Second?
Second,
Any-
I have a question. How you, I don't remember the last year, but how you come out 1.8 million?
These numbers are exact numbers from last year. And so
Because
this
there's
is something, it's routine. This is what districts do.
Yeah,
That it's a tool within the toolbox.
Is there a formula though for 1.8 or, I mean, I assume nothing's ever arbitrary, so I'm assuming there has to be.
Yeah, this is a county level determination. So it authorizes the district upon the resolution being passed.
So the county provided the number
The-
based
the
on
county
its own
provides-
formula.
yes.
so based on our school size, district size, right?
Right.
In this like a
Exactly.
limit.
LAUSD will of course need to borrow more. But this is the board's resolution to allow administration to proceed.
Okay, so we had a first and a second. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Kelly, would you like to be first this time?
Sure.
This allows us to pay our bills. That's really what it's for. In the event cash flow isn't what it's planned to be, this helps us make sure we pay.
Yes.
Mike?
Aye.
Joseph?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Shelley?
Aye.
Jeannie? Aye. Terrific.
Great. Resolution 2 is the second of 3 resolutions for the board to consider approving this evening. Again, this is another tool within our metaphoric toolbox. The resolution is an authorization to borrow from the Los Angeles County Treasurer. So now instead of borrowing from ourselves, we're borrowing from the treasurer at the county level for cash flow purposes. For example, making payroll. The maximum amount of authorized borrowing is not to exceed $20 million and shall not exceed 85% of the anticipated revenues accruing to the district. Also, borrowing shall not be made prior to the first day of the fiscal school year, nor after the last Monday in April of the current fiscal year. Since amounts borrowed are temporary in nature, the loans shall be repaid from revenues accruing to the district before any other obligation of the district is met from such revenue. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve Resolution 2 as presented.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
I do
Any-
have one little question.
Uh-huh.
Are these the trans that you used to do? or
No,
is it-
trans is different. Trans
You don't
would be
need to go
market.
into it.
Yeah, this is county.
Okay.
County has a fund, yes.
And although it's probably understood, just to make sure for anybody that's watching and listening, we are not borrowing $20 million. We're authorizing that if we need to, we could borrow up to that at one point.
Right, exactly. This is for fiscal solvency.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So same as before, just larger dollar amount. So continue to pay our bills. Kelly,
Yes.
you said yes?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Mike,
Aye.
Joseph,
Aye.
Jane,
Aye.
Shelley,
Aye.
Jeannie, aye.
Okay,
Next up.
thank you. Resolution 3 is the third of 3 routine resolutions for the board to consider approving this evening. Again, this is the third tool in our metaphoric toolbox. The resolution is an authorization to delegate administrative authority to the process routine budget revisions, adjustments and transfers during the 22-23 fiscal year. The amount of any individual routine budget revision, adjustment, or transfer shall not exceed $750,000. The total amount of routine budget revisions, adjustments, and transfers at any one time may not exceed $1.5 million. All budget adjustments and transfers must be made in accordance with the provisions of educational code and processed using the appropriate forms and documentation as provided by the County Office of Education and in compliance with applicable district guidelines. It is therefore recommended that the Board of Education approve Resolution 3 as presented, so administration may carry out the fiscal operations of the district.
I just ask, are the dollar amounts that listed here the same dollar amounts as prior
Yes,
resolutions in prior years?
that's correct.
Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Second. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? So Kelly, what this does is the board only meets on the second and the fourth Tuesdays. So should there be a need for adjustment and, we would be unable to approve it before we had a board meeting, it authorizes Linda and her designee, who I assume to be Dr. Lynn here, to be able to handle business during that period of time. So with that, what's your vote?
Yes.
Great. Mike?
Aye.
Joseph?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Shelley?
Aye.
And I agree. Yes. Sorry, I got distracted there. Okay.
Oh, by the way, how come the signature only for 4 people?
4, 5.
Oh, 5, yeah.
Well, we're missing one member.
Yeah. We need one more.
Why, but why is there even 4 to begin with? Actually, no, that's Secretary of Governing Board. There is no Secretary of Governing.
Yeah,
Board.
2 board
Clerk.
member, yeah.
That would be the superintendent is our.
Yeah, the
secretary.
superintendent's the
Yeah,
secretary.
yeah.
But the other ones only had the clerk.
Secretary, I think is a clerk. So.
Yeah, the secretary needs to be
Need one
changed to
more.
clerk.
So let's amend it and, let's redo the motion with an amendment so that we can, have
Yeah.
this be done. So there are 5 of us, right? So if we have 4, I assume we need all 5. So we need to add another line for a member. And then we need the secretary to say clerk. So we have 2 amendments. One to add for 1 more board member and one to change secretary to clerk. Are those amendments accepted? Whoever made the first and the second, would you maybe make it again with the amendments?
Do we need to do anything to the previous?
Well, I guess I think what we're doing is we're amending and revoting. So, so I guess maybe technically we withdraw. Anyone know?
I think you can withdraw the motion and the second and then start over with an amended motion.
Okay, so how about if I do this? Why don't I make a potential motion and you all first and second it, okay? So with regard to our last vote, which was 11E, resolution number 3, after we voted, it was noticed that the signers need to be amended. So I am making a motion that we withdraw our prior approval. And let's do that first, and then we'll come back and make a new motion with the amendments. Is that fair?
Seconded.
You second what I just said?
Well, I thought you made a motion.
I did.
Okay.
Thank
Oh,
you.
I thought
Oh, well, I suppose I could make it my own first and you can do the second. Yes, that's great. Okay, any questions? All right, let's vote.
Yes.
Yes,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Jane,
Aye.
Shelley,
Aye.
Jeannie, aye. All right, now, new motion. The same document, but as we discussed in the amendments, we'll add another line for the second member of the governing board to sign. And where it says secretary of the governing board, we're going to change that to clerk. So 2 amendments. So may I have, so I'm making that motion. And I need a second to the amended motion.
Second.
Thank you, Joseph. Any questions, comments, clarifications?
I just wonder how come the Stephen Ball cannot sign? No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Did we
Tiffany,
always have all
would
five
you like
minutes?
to read? Huh?
I got it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not even reading right. I can't see. It's too late for me. Kelly. Would you like to make the an amended vote or new vote now for this one?
Yes.
Thank you. Mike,
Aye.
Joseph,
Aye.
Jane. Aye. Shelley,
Aye.
Jeannie. Yes. All good. All right. So now we're set with this one too, which I believe is the last action item on our agenda, correct? Do you have any more? I mean, I've been trying to mark them off, but now I'm confused.
Thank you.
So now we're at board superintendent discussion items. And I mean, I just made, that's actually Kelly, where I made the note. We probably, if someone hasn't told you, sometimes we try to close our meetings by 10. Honestly, I think this is the first night where that's actually almost happened. But we know you go to school and we want you to be good the next morning. So if you ever need to leave for whatever reason, just feel free to do that.
Okay.
Anything for you that you want to
no.
get with us?
Thank
Okay,
you. I'm just super excited about tomorrow.
we are adjourned. Thanks. You guys have a great day tomorrow and tonight.
Yeah.
You have 2 seconds.
I do.
Awesome.